Hey folks, welcome back to day 3. Patrick Hyman here, Region 10, OFA, Canada Program Specialist. So I'll keep these kind of opening comments pretty sweet and short here. We've got another very interesting day planned. So I think like our last 2 days, we're going to kick off this first day with another kind of chat box icebreaker. And then we'll move into today's first workshop. That's going to be focusing on leveraging relationships to expand services and supports for Tribal TANF families. Following this, we'll have our final workshop, and that's on strengthening partnerships between Tribal TANF and child welfare. And then I think very exciting to close out our meeting, we'll hear from Tanaya Winder. She's a performance poet, writer, motivational speaker, educator, and enrolled member of the Duckwater Shoshone tribe. So if there's no immediate questions, concerns, let's kind of get that icebreaker rolling and get our day going. I probably should have said next slide, next slide, next slide. Here we are. All right. So our first question, what's a new skill or hobby that you'd like to learn? So go ahead and jump in that old chat box and show us what you got. Probably for me, I'd say anything musical. I've got a tin ear. I can't play anything to save my life, but I would love to be able to play piano or guitar. It's just not going to happen. Oh, single tear. All right, photography. Yeah, I know that's pretty popular. Playing the piano. Yep. I feel your pain. More music, drumming, jewelry, and metalwork. Yep. Got a feeling we see a lot of crafty folks coming into here. What else we got? It's never too late, folks. Don't let my pessimism get you down. There's always time for new skills or hobbies. Cooking, yeah, better chef. Oh, now all the cooking prompts are coming. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of music. I guess I'm not alone. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Oh, fly fishing. All right. Oh, brave, Elma, brave. That's something else I'd like to do that I just cannot. I think if I got on the skis, I consider that day to be a success. Oh, languages. Yeah, I thought of language, but yeah. Karen, Thai is interesting. It's not a language you people say a lot I'd like to learn, but it's definitely a popular vacation destination. So. There you go. All right, give folks another minute or so, and then we'll. Sam. Always got to be unique and special, don't you say? Bagpipes. Yeah, man, that's a hard hobby to like start learning. You gotta like a soundproof room in your house. All right, have about 30 more seconds. I totally believe you. All right, let's get a couple more, then we'll move on to our next question. I like what I'm seeing so far. Who doesn't want to learn bagpipes without becoming the most hated person in your state, neighborhood, community, family? Flowers. Like flower arrangements or flowers kind of out of paper? Interesting. And we got like paper flowers, yeah. definitely like a wide diversity of responses here. Pretty groovy. Okay, well, if you're in the midst of typing that preferred hobby or that desired hobby or skill, keep going. But let's move on to our next question. So what is one change you'd like to make or see happen in your program? And Sam, you can't say bagpipes. You could say bagpipes. All right. I was about to say maybe there should be, but I'm not going to say that. No, it's in the reg somewhere. They're really lengthy and complex, but it's a longer time clock. Okay, interesting. Longer time limits. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm seeing a little WPR hate come through, which I've never heard before. It's unique and different, but okay, just kidding. Yes, different outcome measures. Okay, time limits again. Oh, interesting. And normalizing virtual processes. Yep. Yeah, those restricted funding numbers. Yep. A lot of seconds around bagpipes. Okay, better cross-agency coordination. You're good. Yeah, keep going, folks. Stigma reduction. Ooh, nice. I wasn't thinking that way, but yeah, that is a great point. Okay, folks, a few more seconds here to finish typing. Good answers. I mean, definitely some I've seen many times, some ones I've never seen before. So, okay, Megan, nice. More wraparound. And then more of the reducing the stigma of being on TANF. Good answer. Yeah, I like all the destigmatization answers. I saw that question. I was thinking kind of internal to the program, but changing things externally would be, I think, also a big plus. Okay. All right. Yeah. Do we have a third icebreaker question or just two today? I feel like we maybe had more than two last time. I'll just say next slide and I'll see what happens. If more questions come up, then we'll know. Okay, there were two questions. There we go. Okay. Hey, folks, thanks for sounding in. Thanks, Jackie. Great responses, much appreciated. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Julie Fong from Region 9, and she'll kind of kick off our first workshop of the day. Julie?
Thanks, Patrick. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're doing well. We're really glad that you're here with us. Thanks so much. I have the honor of introducing and facilitating the next session. As many of you know, partnership is a critical cornerstone to the success of any TANF program. It provides your program with the capacity to provide diverse options, resources, and supports to your clients, and allows the program to ensure a wide array of comprehensive services without having to provide the services directly under the program itself, which contributes to overall improved bandwidth and service provision. Our next session will provide you with actionable examples of strategies for establishing and growing partnerships, illustrate the benefit of partnerships, and provide some real-life examples of how partnerships improved overall outcomes for program participants. We all like a great success story. So I have the honor of introducing our 3 panel members. I'm just going to talk a little bit about their backgrounds, and then I'll hand the mic off. Our first presenter is Brittany Serralta. Brittany is with the Cook Inlet Tribal Council. Brittany will be discussing CITC's one-stop approach to service provision and how partnerships ensure that participants can be served across both internal and external agencies in a wide array to best meet their self-sufficiency goals. The programs can provide everything from employment and training services to legal services, recovery resources, and behavioral health services. Our second presenter today will be Delia Smith with Oneida Nation. Delia will be discussing Oneida Nation's use of P funds to provide expanded supports to clients and the associated importance of establishing and building partnerships to further grow resources that are available to clients, such as partnerships with local farms for increased food access. Our third presenter today is Nicole Gonzalez. She's the TANF Director for the North Fork Rancheria. And Nicole will be presenting the North Fork Rancheria's approach to fostering full wraparound services through the establishment of community partnerships and how leveraging those partnerships can create real change and success for clients. This includes a resource referral process that implements an internal method where departments research and identify community resources, establish a point of contact, learn about the eligibility and application process, and create a follow-up procedure to ensure successful client access. Just briefly, I'll talk really quickly about their, just want to give you some information from their bios. Brittany Serralta is the current director for the Employment and Training Services Department at Cook Inlet Tribal Council, which is a tribal nonprofit organization located in Anchorage, Alaska. And it primarily serves the Alaska Native and American Indian population with a focus in child and family services, education, early childhood learning, recovery services, and employment and training. These programs serve almost 19,000 Alaska Native people on an annual basis. Brittany possesses 18 years of experience in organizational development and public service. She's been employed with CITC for the past 9 years. Brittany holds a Master's of Science in Industrial Organization Psychology from North Central University and a Bachelor's in Psychology from Ashford University. Delia Smith is a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and has been the director of the Oneida Nation's Economic Support Department since 2017. Delia oversees 14 programs, including TANF and NEW. Delia possesses a Bachelor's Science degree in Sociology and Native American Social Work from the University of Wisconsin and a Master's degree in Cultural Foundations of Education from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And last, Nicole Gonzalez is, again, the current TANF Director for North Fork Rancheria Tribal TANF Program, overseeing 7 California service areas that provide Native American families the opportunity to thrive and overcome barriers to achieve and sustain self-sufficiency. Nicole possesses a BA in Healthcare Administration with a double minor in Public Administration and Human Resources. So I'd like to pass the mic off to our first presenter, and that would be Brittany Serralta.
Thank you, Julie, for your introductions. Next slide. Cook Inlet Tribal Council is a nonprofit organization located in Anchorage, Alaska, primarily serving Alaska Native and American Indian populations. CITC's primary area of focus includes child and family services, education, early childhood learning, recovery services, and employment and training. Each year, as Julie mentioned, our programs serve almost 19,000 Alaska Native people who have come to recognize CITC as a community place for assistance, support, and connection. Currently, CITC provides services to its participants via 5 core departments, including Alaska's People, Child and Family Services, Employment and Training Services, Recovery Services, and Youth Empowerment Services. The Alaska's People and Employment and Training Service Department both connect participants with employment, training, and educational opportunities, while ETSD also provides participants with temporary funding to include TANF, general assistance, and other supportive services. The Child and Family Services Department delivers trauma-informed services that stabilize, preserve, and reunify participating families. The Recovery Services Department operates a variety of programs and facilities that provide adults and youth participants with outpatient and residential substance use disorder treatment services. Our Youth Employment Department delivers in-school and after-school educational programs designed to enrich youth participants' academics, cultural values, traditional knowledge, family involvement, and positive development. Additionally, two CITC affiliates contribute significantly to CITC's mission, with services including Early Head Start, which is our Claire Swan Early Learning Center, and legal advocacy and case management for victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, and human trafficking, which is our Alaska Native Justice Center. Next slide. As you can see by this slide, Alaska is very large. CITC is located in Anchorage, Alaska, which is that small little circle there on the map. This Alaska's size is vast compared to the rest of the United States, which makes our service area very large. Our statewide population of 737,000, 145,000 of those individuals are Alaska Native or American Indian. The size of Alaska is approximately 663,000 square miles. We have 13 Alaskan Native regional corporations, 12 regional nonprofits, and there's 229 federally recognized tribes in Alaska. 8 of these tribes are part of our Cook Inlet region. And we have trends in migration from rural to urban areas. CITC's program serves the Cook Inlet region with an American Indian and Alaska Native population of more than 50,000, or roughly 40% of the total Native American population in Alaska. In Anchorage alone, the Native population is almost 40,000. Directly and indirectly, CITC's programs have statewide impact. Next slide. Our mission at CITC is to work in partnership with our people to develop opportunities that fulfill our endless potential. Our people have always understood that no one lives in isolation. Individuals depend on each other as well as themselves. Some of our values: we are interdependent, we are resilient, we're accountable, we're respectful, and we're humorous. With interdependence, we trust one another and work as a team toward our common goal. And we recognize that each of us has an equally important role in the community and that we are stronger together as individuals. With resiliency, we look to the future with steadfast optimism, hope, and faith in our people. We engage in solutions and endure adversity with courage. Accountability, we're reliable, work with integrity, and lead by example. We honor our obligations and correct our mistakes. And we are respectful. We treat one another with dignity and kindness. We value and embrace our diversity. We respect ourselves, and we understand our boundaries. Our vision: we envision a future in which all of our people, especially our youth, the stewards of our future, have access to vast opportunities and have the ability, confidence, and courage to advance and achieve their goals, infused with an unshakable belief in our endless potential. Next slide. Some of our 2021 impact by department, as you can see below, there's quite a few things that we have, quite a few individuals we've served over the 2021 year, over 13,000 participants. 1,202 participants were served in Alaska's people, with 101 employees meeting CITC's definition of Alaska Native or American Indian household were recruited to work for CITC and its subsidiaries. 2,350 were served in recovery services, with 15,500 individuals were served through 68 different outreach events. 1,100 families were served with COVID financial assistance in our Employment and Training Services Department. 629 individuals were employed, with 169 of them moving from temporary assistance to employment. The average wage increase for our participants was $10.38 per hour. 1,029 youth participants were served through CITC's Education and Innovation Services. We have a 97% graduation rate, and 10,480 hours in combined STEM-based projects in our Fab Lab, serving 671 students in the classrooms. 450 individuals were served through Child and Family Services, and we have an 81% average reunification rate. Next slide. And our next slide will be a video presentation from our president.
For nearly 40 years, Cook Inlet Tribal Council has been dedicated to helping Alaska Native people achieve their endless potential. In 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic reached Alaska, CITC was ready to respond. We immediately mobilized crisis response teams to serve our most vulnerable populations. We kept our doors open for our people and supported our staff with vital health and safety resources. We leaned into technology and found innovative ways to continue serving our community at a time of crisis. When CITC received CARES Act funding from CIRI, we went to work. We collaborated with CIRI and our tribal, nonprofit, and community partners to make sure these funds were used to help our people heal. I am pleased to highlight a few of our most successful CARES-funded projects. In collaboration with CIRI, CITC implemented the Direct Assistance Program, which allowed CIRI shareholders, descendants, and their dependents to apply for one-time COVID-19 relief payments. As a result, CITC helped distribute more than $12 million to CIRI shareholders, including 7,023 adults and 3,870 dependents. Working in partnership, CITC assisted CIRI in identifying and serving over 2,000 new descendants, which increased CIRI's shareholder numbers significantly.
We came down with COVID the week of Christmas, and so these funds were deposited, I believe, the week before Christmas. And so it's just like this big blessing in disguise because we were out from everything for a good 2 weeks. We were out of work and school and everything for a while, so it definitely benefited us to help pay for things like groceries.
CITC's commitment to youth education is seen through the success of our Fab Lab and STEM learning curriculum. With the support of the CARES funding, CITC is expanding into a new 17,000 square foot Super Fab Lab. The new location paves the way for true self-determination and promotes safety efforts like social distancing. We've invested in advanced fabrication technology to produce personal protective equipment, or PPE, and machines that can be sent to remote locations to support local maker spaces. With the support of CARES funding, CITC's Super Fab Lab is poised to make an incredible impact for generations to come. The COVID-19 pandemic challenged our people's well-being in ways we never imagined. That's why CITC invested CARES Act funding into suicide prevention and mental health services for participants navigating stress, trauma, and anxiety during the pandemic. CITC's Addiction and Recovery Services piloted a 3-month virtual walk-in clinic for participants in need of crisis intervention, referral, and follow-up care. Through this effort, CARES funding allowed us to respond in real time to the needs of our people. We also use CARES funding for flexible and responsive direct assistance. This investment helped feed families, support victims of domestic violence, and provided our people with assistance for things like vehicle repairs, winter clothing, and computers for school-aged children. Funding was also used to help our community with subsidized employment. Finally, we worked alongside of our tribal partners, including Chicxulub, Ninilchik, Tyonek, and Kanik, to expand the impact of CARES funding, which led to the purchase of equipment, property, and technology needed to support the health, safety, education, and food security needs of our tribal members. On behalf of the CITC family, thank you. We're grateful to CIRI and the CIRI board for entrusting us with these much-needed funds to support our people in a great time of need.
Thank you guys for letting me share that. This next slide, CITC is not a research organization. We are, however, deeply data-driven and committed to program design based on expert evaluation, meaning that we rely heavily on the expertise of our participants to shape, refine, and reshape initiatives. In addition to academic and technical assistance, we're grounded in data, but we have come to understand that nationally recognized evidence-based practices are not necessarily based on the evidence that we see in our data. Our practice informs our evidence. We're committed to honor and use the expertise of our participants, not only in program planning, but also in respecting their own definition of success based on their values. The 5 factors tool specifically requires participants to identify in each of their 5 domains success metrics of their own choosing. 5 factors is a participant self-assessment and case management tool that defines, tracks, and measures participants' movement toward their own definition of success and helps CITC determine the most effective way to unite the efforts of its service departments to meet the needs of our participant families. The 5 factors that are used in the self-assessment tool are cultural and spiritual wellness, relationships, healthy lifestyles, education and training, and financial stability. CITC is developing the tool using extensive participant input, literature reviews, board discussions, and feedback from various partners, including the Aspen Institute. CITC was also recently awarded a research grant where we're working in partnership on revising these 5 factors, as well as looking into how we more appropriately utilize this with our participants. 5 factors is entirely dependent on the voice and perspective of CITC participants, particularly those who are parents, for information about our service population. We understand that our participants live in families of many sorts. What we learned from Aspen about 2-generation model paved the way for our own multi-generational approach and complex communities. It is notable that when investigation first began to answer what moves a family forward, the literature reviews exclusively centered around self-sufficiency. In time, it became clear that while self-sufficiency is indeed an important value among our participants, values of interdependence are generally trumped by interdependence. Our people prize community over wealth and find success in the intersection of the 5 domains of their choosing. As our board of directors pointed out in a recent resolution, participants cannot succeed in any one domain without working in all. Next slide. In 2021, CITC launched the Come As You Are campaign to promote accessibility and awareness of its services in our community. The theme of Come As You Are is at once an invitation and a reflection of CITC's judgment-free approach to its services. The outreach campaign features current and former CITC program participants sharing their stories of success across CITC's diverse services. This campaign reflects CITC's commitment to acceptance, grace, and partnership in the journey toward endless potential. Next slide. The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members, as stated by Coretta Scott King in such an impactful quote and a representation of all of the community partners that we connect with to ensure that our families are served holistically. As you can see by this slide, our Employment and Training Service Department works with numerous partners within our local community in order to best serve our participants. From training facilities and schools, employment opportunities and partnerships, and other social service agencies, our ultimate goal is to provide seamless wraparound services, both internally and externally, to fully support and work alongside families toward their goals of self-sufficiency. Next slide. CITC's Thrivability 2025 goals are listed here. Some of those things consist of spiritual wellness, our natural desire to connect as humans and create shared pathways of healing. 5 factors, what our participants tell us success looks like, reflects our spirit of participant co-design and puts participant voice at the center of what we do. Tribal relationships, creates deep and lasting relationships with the 8 tribal partners to collaborate across programmatic lines to build infrastructure and capacity. Youth and elders opens pathways to connect youth and elders to culture, tradition, and knowledge. Our youth are part of CITC's governance with our Youth Advisory Council. Digital technology, leveraging leading technology to drive innovation and progress in every single aspect of the pursuit of our mission, while infusing digital technology into all that we do. Leadership, assisting in developing a roadmap for Alaska Native leaders in civic, community, and government roles. And radical models of education to pick up the tools of the modern world and merge them with tradition, culture, and values to develop new models of learning. Next slide. As one of our board members stated, our ancientness is our futurism. And our president has pointed out that our ancientness is indeed our futurism because our traditions and our culture hold the answers to our questions. We find within us the resilience, courage, and skills to not only survive and sustain, but to thrive. We find within us a deep connection to one another and a belief that our path forward will be rooted in our values and our self-determination. Next slide. Thank you all for allowing me to present today.
Thank you so much, Brittany. That was amazing. And as you just highlighted, true partnership begins with the participant, right? Centering the program around the participant. That's the ultimate partnership to ensure success. Thank you for that so much. I'd next like to invite Delia to take the mic.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Julie. Again, my name is Delia Smith. I'm the Director of Economic Support here for the Oneida Nation. And if we can get to my slides. So I'll talk a little bit today about our community resources, how we stay engaged, and how I, as a director, feel that it's really important for the staff and for our clients to be connected. Next slide, please. So for me, I believe that, community outreach or finding those resources is one of the most important aspects of supporting our clients. Obviously, within my building or within my agency, we have about 14 to 15 different programs, depending on the type of the time of the year, and different programs that are sent to us on the higher level. We can't serve everybody, so I always find it really important so that we search and find what is out there next to us in our neighboring communities to find what resources are there when we can't help, or expanding our connections to those different people. Recently, I've really taken on the task of reaching out to different departments or different resources within the community and setting up meetings. And that just allows us to have that support for our clients. So we've been doing more of that recently, and we're finding that we are actually having a lot more success with those connections. Next slide. So for us here at Oneida, within our different programs, we have a multitude of different things going on here. A lot of the case managers do dual assignments or different programs or multiple programs as one case manager. We have our state income maintenance program, which is our healthcare, food share, SNAP, and childcare. We have our federal CCF program. We have TANF. We have community support, which is a tribal contribution program, and we help anybody across the United States that's Oneida for different support services. We have Native Employment Works. We have the State Energy Assistance or LEAP program. We have the Tribal WIOA, General Assistance, and then we have our State Community Service Block Grant. We also are doing a few different quarantine assistance programs right now. And then we also have the ERA funding that came from US Treasury that thankfully will be ending next month. That was a really big taking over. And then we also have the Job Center here on site. And then I also work with the Community Education Center, where we do a lot of educational tutoring. We are the kind of bridge between us and the technical college for GED and HSED programming here in Wisconsin. So we do a lot of different things. And within that, it's my role to kind of make sure everyone, I always say that making sure the caseworkers have all the tools they need in their toolbox. So I want to make sure that everybody has their toolbox ready to go every day. And if they don't, then we do our best to fill that for them. And sometimes that falls on the shoulder of maybe the supervisor or even myself. So like I said, recently we've been doing a lot of reaching out with WIOA. That's a fairly new program for me. So I've been doing a lot of reaching out to the different workforce boards. We've been attached to the state workforce departments. So we can get a better idea of what we can be doing in those programs. So I'm doing a lot of learning, even as a director. I'm not familiar with everything. I don't have every grant and perfectly figured out. So we're all still learning together and making sure that not only am I learning, but my staff is learning, and they're learning some of the different things that come along with grant awards. So I do try to kind of open that up to my team as well, so that they're learning and that's not something I'm holding. So everyone is learning some of those different things. Next slide. So again, I've talked about this. Our connections really help us and our clients get connected to resources. People call us all the time for everything that they need. And so we do our best. We have an intake coordinator that kind of really takes care of those phone calls when we have someone call in and they have needs. They'll kind of work with them and they will kind of assess the situation and see what services we can potentially offer. And then we refer them out. I always ask my team as well, if we can't help them, and each denial letter that we are sending them somewhere else to find a different resource. So if we don't have it, we do our best to make sure that they're given information to find a resource that we know about or that we can share with them. And just having that conversation will help eliminate, the negative ideas. It really empowers staff to feel like they're really helping people and giving them a resource. And again, for us, it's helping people get those educational opportunities. And it's just, helping the next step for our families to be self-sufficient or to be sufficient, where some of these services aren't a necessary thing every day, and maybe just a support service. Next slide. Some of the things that we do, because we're so large as far as different programming, we're not a large team. Between all of the programs, we have only a staff of 18. However, we do a lot of different things to maintain our outreach and to strengthen those connections. So through COVID, we did a lot of drive-throughs. Our CCF program did all kinds of drive-throughs. They had different kind of support services for the health and safety for the kids that were at home, with book drives and different events that way. We've done drive-through job fairs during COVID. We did a Boo Bash, or a Halloween event for COVID. Again, during COVID, we were kind of, our doors just opened in June to the public. So we have been closed behind closed doors for this whole time. So we did everything we had to do was really thinking outside the box. But we still had to maintain those connections to our clients and to our partners. So, and again, some of the other things that we like to do is allow people to take tours with us. We've invited our local county people to come take a tour with us to show them the kind of the disconnect or some of the barriers that might happen as far as the rural part of our reservation. So the county will be coming with us to kind of check out the different resources that are here, and so they are aware of them. A few of my staff are part of the county the workforce boards or the different community boards. So they are involved constantly with the counties as well, where they fit. Or I always encourage staff as well to be a part of different workforce groups or any kind of volunteering. Volunteering is always held highly within our area, so that they can be a part of whatever's going on and give back. We have a few MOAs with different counties. So we have an MOA with the larger county that we're working with the workforce board, to make sure that we're connected and we're involved in the different things that the larger county or area workforce board is involved in. We do offer presentations to different departments. A lot of the times we're getting calls and questions from professionals. So we try to outreach and do that in a larger presentation so that a lot of professionals are aware instead of just one or two. Some of the things we do too is through COVID is we offered thumb drives with the template of a resume, a cover letter, different things. So we're offering, again, having that community be involved even through COVID, through different things. A lot of the times too is we reach out, even internally within the nation, we are a larger nation. We have about 2,700 employees, not as large as Alaska's program, but we do have a larger employee base. So we like to reach out and set up meetings. Some of the things we've recently been involved with is having meetings with the high school and meetings with, we have a program that works directly with the students in public schools rather than the tribal school. So we met with them as well, because sometimes they forget about the services that we offer. So I'll often remind people of what we offer here at the office. And you can go to the next slide, please. For our PEEF program, we also use a lot of internal processes or connections. We have one of our own, the Oneida Nation has a farm. They have a buffalo farm and a beef farm, along with they have a corn, they have all kinds of different things on the farm, but one of their bigger farm products is the beef and the buffalo. So what we did with our P funds was made a connection with our farm department, our area, and it allowed us for them to exchange some of our P funding for those who chose that as an option to purchase the meat. The only downfall is because we had so many people that actually took that, is our farm couldn't sustain the amount of people that were requesting the meat products. So we did have to end that at some point during our PEEF programming, because the farm just didn't have enough of that meat to continue in that process. Part of our PEEF, we also allowed for digital device reimbursement. We realized a lot of children or families were at home and couldn't connect with maybe elders or people who may be compromised and couldn't be out in public. We assisted with our internet bills, PPE and household items, and we also assisted with winter clothes. So all families were offered $250 towards whatever benefit they chose, and they could choose 2 different items. So we did try to work internally with the allowance within the PEEF funding, and then kept that money internally in the community and with the nation. Next slide. Here's a couple different pictures of some of the things that we have done within the last couple of years, really since COVID. You can see our SpongeBob, we have Sandy the squirrel. We had people drive through our area for candy with all our different departments. We're a really large building with different departments in it. And I think I don't know how many staff are in this building, but I would guess over 100, maybe 200 within this whole larger building. So everybody had a theme. We did a lot of walking. Last year, we helped with some winter Christmas gifts. A lot of the pictures to the drive-throughs were not just us, it was multiple departments within the building. They would purchase different programs, would purchase different things. They are purchasing food from our cannery, which is a subsidiary of the farm. So some of the food that they get from the farm goes to the cannery for production. So we had like some traditional foods for breakfast, oatmeal, and different drinks. So that was all processed in all of the events that we had last year. One of the events that we had with COVID or having that partnership was working with the actual community. So in the, how would you say, the introduction of the children being returned home from different residential boarding schools, one of the programs kind of did a drive-through to honor those children. So For the first, I think it was 215 children that were brought back to their reservation, the CCF program created a health and safety package with a bike giveaway for families. So in honor of those children. So between the staff, they really went out and above and asked the community for bikes. There was not only did we purchase bikes, but a lot of community members, staff members, and such were part of that event. Purchase bikes. And so we did give over 200 bikes away by volunteer or by donation or purchase from the programs. That was a really great turnout. So just a lot of different things, again, thinking outside of the box and keeping those connections with not only our providers, but our community as well. Next slide. So with some of the challenge that I see and some of the solutions when we're working with our partners, some of the challenges that we see all the time is planning. You can never get 5 people on the same calendar, or it's really hard. Someone has to back out. Maintaining interest in your topic, getting people to sign on. And then to follow through when you have a project or you're wanting to go forward with something, it's, who's going to follow through. So making sure those things are assigned. And then just dealing with the differing opinions or just any kind of people don't agree on things, or even if we have time constraints or you don't have money. Some of the solutions I came up with, because I found that at first I was canceling appointments and just kind of losing touch with what we were trying to do. And I found that I'd always go back to saying, well, we tried it and nothing happened, but part of that was me not moving forward on things. So some of the things I've seen myself do that it's been a learning lesson for myself is move forward with the team, big or small. If we were scheduled for a team of 6 and 3 people showed, I'm gonna move forward. I'm not gonna cancel and reschedule because that just really takes away from your momentum. And then create ongoing appointments. If you have a scheduled event and someone has to fall out, then just continue to make those appointments. Don't wait for the other person to move forward. I think for empowerment reasons, we're asking others to lead. So if you have direct frontline staff that need to lead, offer them that. And be respectful. We're not going to always agree. We're not going to always have the same opinion, and to be open and thoughtful about different things and experiences. And always just dedicate time to what you're doing and what you have on your plate. Although it's hard, all of us, whether it be frontline or management, our time is spent in different things, but we have to make that time to make those connections, keep those connections, and respect those connections. And then for financial, usually if you work together with different programs might have different funding allocations that can be used for different things. So really having that conversation. Sometimes you don't have it, but it doesn't hurt to ask. So that's some of the challenges and solutions that I personally have experienced that I just continue on and move forward. So I hope that's helpful to some people. Next slide. Some of the lessons that we've learned, or I've learned, or even management has learned within COVID, or even just trying to make connections or having people respond to us and having those connections within the community, is we update our website daily. If we have new applications, we're updating links, we're updating hyperlinks, we're attached to that. And again, my intake worker does a lot of that for me, but it's constant updating on our website as well as our Facebook page. We don't engage in negativity. We kind of actually filter through our Facebook often to get rid of any negativity or people that are responding negatively, because that's just sometimes the way things go. We've created all our films to be PDF fillable. I think we were kind of living in a historic time of printing off paper, but we've made all of our forms PDF fillable to our hyperlinks. And then we've created emails for specific programs, so they're not funneling all through the same email. So if I have programs for rent assistance, it's going to the right program instead of our basic email. Having policies that help avoid confusion for staff as things change, making sure that people are aware of what they should be doing, empowering staff, creating some mentoring and development for them all to learn, And then allow others to lead. I feel that's really important. I ask others to lead, when they can or feel comfortable. And then always, for me, when you're doing any kind of events or you're having that connection, is asking for, looking for feedback and reflecting on what worked and maybe didn't work, and moving forward from that and growing. Next slide. Here's some of our Facebook. We find that Facebook is really, for us, it's really powerful as far as getting connected to the community and our clientele. Some of the things that were offered during COVID, we had different presentations on our website on winter care for your vehicle. The one good thing, I know some tribes can't use Facebook, but we just find it really, really, it just works for us. It's how a lot of people connect. Excuse me. The one good thing you can get with Facebook is the demographics, or you can get the statistics from who's using it, how many users you're getting, and all that. So it's really nice to gather that data and bring it back to your team. During COVID, we did a lot of stuff outside as far as picking up applications and just being in touch. And again, also masking. So we just really worked outside of the box. Again, our main point was staying connected to our resources and our clients. And again, we do a lot of, the nation does a live Facebook 2 times a week. And when we do lives, just for our department, we'll almost double or triple the interactions between our Facebook lives rather than the nation's Facebook lives. So it has been really useful for us as just a department. Next slide. And I guess I'm done. Thank you.
Delia, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I really loved your solutions to partnership challenges. That was fantastic. And your lessons learned. Asking others to lead. Yes, fantastic. Thank you so much. I'd like to now welcome Nicole Gonzalez to take the mic. Hi, Nicole.
Hello, thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Gonzalez. I'm the TANF Director for North Fork Rancheria Tribal TANF. Today, I'd like to just expand a little bit upon substance abuse referral services that we've used, and kind of found our way around creating a warm referral process. During COVID, we felt the need as a TANF organization to kind of find ways to empower and support clients who may be struggling with mental health or substance abuse issues. We could see, working from home for our clients, they kind of had a shift a little bit in paperwork being turned in on time and attending appointments regularly. Probably 3 months into COVID isolation. This was on our radar as an organization. We kind of, as upper management, decided, if we see this in our clients, we're probably seeing this in our staff as well. We should do check-ins with them and kind of take a temperature check every couple, week and a half. Let's see how things are going. Working remotely had its own set of challenges for staff, and even more so for our clients. We saw that it was definitely taking a toll on people's mental health. We noticed that there was some behavioral changes in some of our families. There might have been some additional substance abuse happening, but people really in a place of uncertainty. And they were also in a place of having to school their children at home and being laid off from work, having financial issues. So seeing all these needs kind of happen in our organization all at once, we quickly wrapped our heads around opportunities that this may be able to come up with and implement into our program. Next slide, please. So as we started talking about leveraging resources, we found that it refers to systematically assessing the use of existing resources. We needed to identify the need for additional resources, creating new ones in the community and state systems to address identifying needs for existing funding and streamlining new funding from agencies and organizations. With that, we know that here in the Valley, there's plenty of resources, but we did notice that Some resources had either grants that maybe were utilized and were no longer in existence. The viability of those resources may not have been what they were due to the higher need out there in the community. Next slide, please. Our collaboration goals as we came together looked at different instances. Even though there are these needs surrounding our families and what COVID is bringing to the table, we have to have collaboration goals. So we started talking as a team, like who we want to collaborate with, what can we both bring to the table, what do those purposes look like, and how are we aligning with our core values. We also looked at the ability to service the same target population and available funding for new projects. Leveraging resources would definitely reduce the duplication of services. So that was one thing we really wanted to expand upon. We didn't want to take money from both organizations and do the same things when, if possible, we would be able to come together and really make a viable difference. This enabled organizations to increase services while reducing monetary contribution or manpower. So even though some things that we were doing in collaboration and trying to build resources for mental health services, substance abuse, outpatient therapies, wellness groups, manpower is a huge expense as well. And even though it's not, tangible, it's not monetary, it's still, time away from your duties within your organization to come together and link up to service, both interests. Next slide, please. So we started asking ourselves, we are very comfortable in our bubbles. We're very comfortable in, the resources that we currently have on hand. We use them all the time. We know that they are, they're doing what we need to get done. But do we really stop and ask ourselves, who's in our professional bubble? If we really take a moment and think about who are our top 3 agencies or organizations we go to in our local area. For North Fork Rancheria, we have 7 different service areas. We've got, the Central Coast, Central Valley, we've got rural mountain communities. Those professional bubbles have very different collaborative partners in the different regions that you live in or that you're servicing. I think if we take a second and we think about a couple of professional resources that we use that are go-tos, maybe we can just share a few of those in the comment box. I know for myself, I always look for any type of wraparound program that has a multitude of different organizations, but myself, I've always looked, who are our Native American collaborative partners? That's who our clients are typically more comfortable with. And not all the time do those Native American organizations have the funding ability to take on new collaborative partnerships. So as we think about who's in our professional bubble, what benefits can be established working with those specific agencies? And can any of those agencies expand upon their services and connect with pathways which service any of our TANF purposes? We have plenty of resources, and if you're, in the city, that can help with, community food banks. They can help with, most of the time, some type of temporary assistance for maybe outpatient mental health services. There could be some giveaways, some backpack events, something to that effect. But when you're looking at servicing clients and families who are directly impacted from COVID with isolation issues, depression, anxiety, you're also looking at the trickle effect, and that includes self-medicating, that includes drinking more, substance abuse. There's a lot of coping mechanisms that we on a program level don't always have the capability of facilitating, because that may not be our point of specialty. That's where we look to our community resources. That's who we look to help pick up the slack for providing a warm referral process. Next slide, please. So awareness of COVID-19 and substance abuse. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, as of June 2020, 13% of Americans reported increasing substance use as a way of coping with stress and emotion related to COVID-19. Overdoses had also spiked since the onset of the pandemic. Our reporting system shows that the early months of the pandemic brought an 18% increase nationwide in overdose compared with those in the same months of 2019. The trend has continued throughout 2021, according to the American Medical Association, which reported in December that more than 40 US states had seen major increase in opioid-related mortality, along with ongoing concerns for those with substance abuse disorders. So we know that it's a national issue. We know that it is happening in every facet of the country, not only in Native country. But we also noticed that there was an increase of ICWA cases that began to rise during COVID. We also noticed that domestic violence was happening more often during COVID. Rapid amount of divorces and separations occurred during COVID. I was hearing, a lot of times, and if you have any social media, you would see, people's families are breaking apart. There's a lot more stress because of financial issues, and a lot of people spending a lot of time together, being under the same roof. And though that's the goal, sometimes, that could pose issues all on its own. We automatically started seeing the increased amount of students failing classes and falling behind due to COVID. We saw the parents struggle to keep their kids, engaged with online learning. We saw kids not wanting to turn their microphones on, their pictures on, just to be present. And some of these teachings were so difficult for parents to be able to wrap their head around. It was causing an even deeper issue, being able to teach your children from home. We also saw the need of mental health services, and really problems that lie within the Medi-Cal realm of providing services. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. There's a lot of different referrals that need to happen, and a lack of access to those who accept Medi-Cal. So those were all things that the organization kind of looked at and started picking apart to see where we can really do a deep dive and create some type of process to assist in these areas. Next slide, please. So with that, we started talking about what TANF programs can do to address the issue. So as staff, we're small but mighty. We have the same about 18 employees. We developed 5 focus groups for 5 main areas that we knew were affecting families, and we looked at our current resources. We selected employees to begin checking on the validity of those resources and assigned teams to topics. So the 5 areas that we really looked at was educational and vocational partnerships. A lot of people were doing a lot of online trainings. They were doing online certificated programs. So we wanted to start, filling the water. What does that look like for us? We have supportive services that can pay for, educational services for clients. Let's look at their responsibility service plans. Let's see what we can do to get those going. Then we also, again, saw the need for mental health services, substance abuse recovery centers, and any outpatient services. Maybe somebody couldn't go into a 90-day program, but they could dedicate 2 hours a day or 2 hours twice a week to go get some outpatient therapy. That was something we really wanted to explore. We also wanted to look at educational partnerships. We did notice that people wanted to take the time, since they're at home already, go ahead and take some online classes, if at all possible. So we wanted to explore that, and also food partnerships. Everybody was being impacted with COVID. Everybody was really worried about, toilet paper and bottled water and all these, staples, needed to survive. We really started tapping into, who is giving away what can we help? Let's put a calendar together. Let's get some viable resources. Next slide, please. So the slogan was, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. So you can imagine when we're all working from home, there's a couple of people in the office a couple of days a week. There's emailing going on. There's, who's going to do what? Where are we going to start? Let's just dig in. And that's what happened. We just started digging in. Go ahead and next slide, please. So checking in with our clients it really helped. You could really tell that people started to break down their guards up, with case managers calling, with family wellness coordinators calling and inviting people to come and do family events virtually. We were dropping off materials to help with families being able to engage with us virtually. But it really started to open up opportunity for conversation. And what we found was that substance abuse is an issue. And we know two things. If we worked in the native country for a while, we know that most of our clients, once they built trust with you, they want to use you in every part of their development. So if they're going to go to school, they're like, okay, how am I going to do this? You're going to help guide me, right? And you have those relationships with people that you foster. You work hard to build those and you want to maintain those. Well, this is the same. It's the same thing. In a warm referral process, you are still taking that relationship you have with that client, and you're thinking about what their lifestyles are, what things they're encountering. So we started with calling agencies in the categories that the staff were assigned to and seeing if we can do some, collaborative Zoom meetings. We took the time to meet and discuss their eligibility criteria. We need to know how their program works. We need to know what type of vital documents are needed. We need to know who all is eligible for this service. There was a few places in town that unfortunately, men, single dads, they could not go to this specific program. It was for women and children only. Finding a county bed or somebody that doesn't have insurance to go ahead and accept somebody with those types of needs was very difficult, especially being non-native. So establishing those relationships for the whole family was really, really important. We obtained brochures, we obtained the applications, the processes, business cards. We requested a point of contact, somebody that we can call. And, of course, HIPAA is an issue, but we'd say, hey, did our client come in? Did they, call and do an assessment today? Did we get any further with them? Having those connections there really just helped follow up with our client and let them know we're still a part of that process. We're still, by your side, and we're giving you the tools, but we're also checking on them. We know that the process is good. We know that there's a bed available for you. We know that we can still help you alongside. You can call us if you need to. But making it a point to ask how we're going to support the whole family during this ordeal. Recovery is not 60, 30, 60, 90 days. It is years. And unfortunately, we only have our TANF families for 5 years if they come to us with, no months on aid. We're still looking to be able to support them once they leave. So finding out if they need daycare, is there any type of ICWA case involved? Are the children with them in the home? Do the children need assistance? What have they been through? Looking at all those things and fostering opportunities and relationships to assist the family as a whole goes into what we can do to create the warm referral process for substance abuse. So then we started looking at everything. We started creating a step-by-step process for clients to include, what documents are needed, what time frame things have to happen. Sometimes there were, drug tests that had to happen right after an assessment, and how are they going to get there? Where were the kids going to go? So kind of coordinating those items also took some getting used to, especially during COVID when a lot of things were closed down. So, and we also wanted to update our resource guide according to service areas, being that there's, so many different service areas. We want to make sure that now that we have these relationships in place, let's put them in a binder, let's put them online, let's make sure everybody has access to those resources in case you pick up that phone and somebody's in dire need. We also wanted to be proactive and look for sober living. We wanted to meet with employers, and we wanted to find pathways into employment or volunteering with agencies who kind of know the barriers that our clients are coming out of. We want to be able to let them know that they have, obligations to maybe doing outpatient living. Maybe they have outpatient group sessions that are happening twice a week. If you work with an organization that knows about these types of barriers, it's very much so a seamless process into volunteering and potential employment. Next slide, please. So things to consider when leveraging relationships in the community. The beginning portion of the work was to look for ways to set up your clients for success. If they need to take the children into an inpatient program, learn about the multitude of different programs to accommodate the family while in recovery. Look for recovery centers within the TANF service areas. The continuing work, while maybe the client is in recovery, work with community partners that understand the barriers of clients who have and utilize organizations who support recovery, such as Goodwill Industries, Salvation Army, churches, other recovery centers that work to employ those and only those who have been through the process. You'd be surprised to hear how many different substance abuse facilities really want somebody to work there who has had experience being an addict. They really want that empathy, that compassion, and that success to shine through when they're working with people who are currently in addiction. So kind of making those calls and being in touch with people like that, or Goodwill and Salvation Army. I mean, they're great organizations that employ a multitude of people and in every walk of life. So that was kind of the continuing work. Is there aftercare? Is there sober living? Do they have a home when they leave? You know, that kind of continuing work. We didn't just stop servicing the client just because they're inpatient. We're still anticipating them successfully, you know, getting out of the program. And what comes next? You want to keep that ball rolling. And then the follow-up work was recreate the responsibility service plan to celebrate small milestones with families in recovery. So, you know, if it is you're going to get your driver's license, well, let's break that down. Let's celebrate the fact that you got a driver's permit. Let's celebrate that you did behind the wheel and passed, and you know, you studied and you got these things done. Let's break that down and let's just celebrate, because from one point to another is a huge distance for somebody who didn't feel they had the capability of doing it at all. So creating wraparound solutions for those seeking recovery by way of learning the community partners' paperwork processes to better assist clients and family is huge. People feel intimidated. Everything in life is a process for the most part. If you give somebody the opportunity to go and seek services without a warm referral, more than likely, they're going to get overwhelmed with the process. They're not going to understand what is being needed, and they just simply leave it where it falls. With a warm referral process, you've made those connections. You're checking in with your client, and you're able to guide them further. So it really has made a big difference with us. Next slide, please. Things you can do to learn more about local services. Contact your Indian Health Service locations to ask about what benefits are covered for mental health and substance abuse. When conducting outreach, make the most of your time and connect to other resources while promoting your program. Get active with your community, community meetings, attend listening sessions, attend community advisory boards, and look for committee openings for tribally appointed citizens to bring information back to TANF. Next slide, please. So that was it for my presentation, but I did want to share a quick example of a full wraparound program, our full warm referral process. We had a single mother who is a past TANF client, mother of 2, and she had a safety plan in place because she was at risk of having her children taken away due to substance abuse issues around COVID. The facility required that she could not be on TANF, even though she was in our service areas while she was blacked out in the program. We closed her case, let her go through her blackout program, and as she came back out, her and her children were still living in the facility, and she obtained employment at the facility she was working at, and she was allowed to get PEEF services. So right as PEEF hit its mark to be able to start servicing people, she was able to get some supportive services. She was able to get some vehicle repairs, some things that will help her succeed while in this program. She was able to go through sober living with her children. She was able to get a place after she got out on her own. and she is still employed with the recovery center that she graduated out of. She doesn't qualify for TANF anymore. She makes too much money. She earns a livable wage. We don't need to provide transitional services because she worked with her tribe and she has her childcare paid for through the tribe. From point A to point Z, you know, being next to this client and being able to support them on their journey really paid off in the end. And she's a success story, and people like that should be celebrated whenever possible. So just wanted to share that with everybody, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Wow, I have all of these sticky notes all over my desk you guys have basically laid out an amazing roadmap. I love the quit talking and begin doing, the way that you took a deliberate strategic approach to partnership development. You built an approach to doing it. You implemented it consistently with really clear focus, really clear steps, consistent steps. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. I'd love to invite all of our speakers, Delia, Brittany, Nicole, to come back on camera and invite our audience, our participants, to submit any questions they have. I'll give it a minute to see if anyone has questions. I have some questions if we don't have any questions from the rest of our participants. And these slides will be made available. Sujina just put the link into the chat for everyone. You can access the slides because truly the three of you just put together basically a roadmap to how to successfully establish and implement partnerships under your programs. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Everything from talking about values and mission and how that should drive to establishing alternative resources for folks that you can't necessarily serve under TANF, allowing others to lead, solutions to partnerships challenges and the lessons learned. That was fantastic. And then take that last deliberate strategic approach to partnership development and the way that you built that strategy was really fantastic. So I'm looking in the chat. I'm not seeing any questions right now. So I have some questions, and this could be directed to all three of you. What does data sharing between you and your partners look like? Have there been any challenges with that? And anyone who'd like to pick up that question?
I'll go ahead and share. Data sharing as far as, well, with substance abuse facilities is kind of difficult. We do ask that any of our clients, if they want to allow us in to be able to check status on them, that they sign a release of information there to be able to share with us. And that part is definitely mandatory. When it comes to data sharing and with other resources, we have a lot of MOUs. A lot of MOUs with schools, with other organizations, and it really helps to share the data. So that makes it a lot easier, but I think it's a little bit more tricky when it comes to substance abuse issues, mental health.
Yeah, because of the HIPAA, yes. Mm-hmm. Brittany or Delia, would you like to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I second that, what Nicole mentioned. We also have some work groups where we connect directly with other agencies to have regular meetings so that we can identify common individuals that we're working with, of course, with releases of information. We also at an organizational level are looking at integrated case management so that we can really be better about really delivering services for participants and having common plans across multiple services so that they're not having 4, 5, 6 plans when you have an organization so large, but instead we can meet together and really serve them with one common plan.
Fantastic. Thank you. Delia.
And we see the same things with our TANF, our frontline workers having those, having to have releases. What we've done with all of our applications, For support services, as part of their signature is a release of information. So it avoids some of that, but we also need it on the other side wherever we're asking. So that's always it can be a problem. Like Nicole said, we also have MOUs. We have MOUs with our tribal ICWA program, as well as the foster care kinship care program. And for TANF purposes, as far as, direct benefits or assignable benefits, we also work with child support with an MOU, so that we're getting lists and can exchange lists of TANF recipients. It doesn't go into detail, but just the names of who's receiving the social services, so that we're all on the same page. It has been really helpful, and it eliminates a lot of back and forth between all of our programs. So that's been helpful.
I can see that. Thank you. We did have a question in the chat asking about, for those of you that used photos of clients in your presentation, what types of waivers do you use to be able to use those pictures in these presentations? Do you just develop your own waiver? How is it under their TANF application? How does that work?
We have an internal form that we utilize with any participants where we're going to share information. We have a form that we have everybody sign in order to protect their rights.
Thank you.
And for this, with some of the pictures that I pulled off were from our website, so they were already signed off on. And there were a few that are covered with our photo liability waiver.
Thank you, Nicole.
And then for us, we didn't have any client pictures, but if we do get a release of information. Everybody we use are currently staff or around the building, so it's part of their job.
Yeah. Thank you. So another question, how have these partnerships impacted your staff? Do the staff feel more supported? Do they feel like they have more resources? For example, Delia, you talked about how it can be super disheartening to have someone come in and they may not be eligible for TANF, but maybe the staff feel more empowered because they have this list of resources or a process in place. Does it make caseloads easier to handle? Does it help with bandwidth?
Definitely. I think, like I said, our intake worker does a lot of that work and she does an amazing job. Any new resource she's finding, we have a larger county that is in our service area. She attends their community like resource brown bag meeting once a month. She gets any of the updates from the agencies. She reports them. They report on the homeless shelters. So she gets that for everybody and she shares it every time. And it really allows us to know what our next steps are internally. So if we know all the shelters are full, then we know that that everyone's, those people are going to be truly homeless. Not that we have any, we don't have hotel vouchers, but at least we know that, we're not in a position to refer them out. So it does really give us a heads up about what's going on. And everybody does a really good job of seeing what's going on, back to school right now. We're just in the first week of kids going back to school this way. And the backpack thing, there was a backpack drive for child support 2 days ago. It was done and over in 20 minutes. So we always are looking for that and sharing it on our Facebook page. So it gives us, and then we're stuck. I had someone from the Head Start call me yesterday. He's like, is there anywhere else to get book bags? I'm like, I'm looking on my Facebook for an agency. I'm like, doesn't look like it, so it does become helpful and allows us to say, yeah, we don't know. And a lot of time when we're out of ideas, we tell people to call 211. Because we use 211 often because we just don't have everything.
Thank you. Brittany, Nicole, do you feel, how have your partnerships or really intentionally putting a partnership plan, establishing partnerships, putting that plan in place, how has that impacted your staff? Do they feel more supported? Do they feel like they have more options and are more effective in their work with clients? Does it make their caseloads easier to handle? Has it expanded their knowledge and skills?
So for our staff here, I think they feel a bit more empowered and supported, knowing that there are other resources that they can fall back on. If, say, for instance, they've a client has utilized, they've maxed out all of our service, maybe in one specific supportive service area, they have a backup plan. Even though we can't help you, here's somebody who can. And we don't have to actually tell you no, but we can come back with a solution and we can make sure it's a viable option, right? So I think not having to be per se, you know, the person with the bad news makes it a lot easier to still support that client. So I think everybody really likes having the knowledge.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I would say I don't really have anything to add. I think just we be intentional about forward thinking of what other relationships can we develop in the community when situations occur where we may not be able to meet participant needs.
Thank you. You know, I'm wondering about what some of the barriers have been to establishing partnerships, both internally, maybe with other tribal partners, but also externally. And how were you able to work through those barriers?
I can start that one. I think one of the biggest barriers we see is really having the correct point of contact in some of our outlying villages. Mm-hmm. You know, you work with people for a period of time and then things transition, and it's really being able to connect with that correct person according to like what funding source we're working with or what program we're working with. And so that's kind of a barrier at times. I also think that really internally, as we develop processes and really work through the best way to serve people at an internal level, really getting things standardized and on the same page to help with eliminating barriers so that we don't run into those in the long run would be another situation I would say that we see as a barrier.
Thank you.
I can chime in too. I think some of the things that I've experienced is the longevity of previous management, where there was, you know, it's unfortunate, but I think it happens for some agencies, is you come into a program that had, you know, someone that was there for 15, 20 years and things were just very that way. So moving away from that thinking and that ideation that this is our program and we're just going to do us. And that has really been some of my struggle, is getting in the door where potentially those relationships in the past had been broken down because of different practices in the previously. So breaking those down. So that's been some of the things that I really have been having with some of those barriers, or just never been established, or just bad relationships previously and they weren't really defined. So kind of, you know, making that a little bit nicer for people to walk into.
Thank you, Delia. And one more question I have, I think we have time for in the chat. I'm wondering if anyone has created a data system within their community or program that participants can utilize, so they only have one application process for various services. Have any of your programs implemented that? Nicole says no.
What we don't have that.
Okay.
But what I did do is I made an internal referral process. So say, for instance, I applied for NEW and I should have really applied for TANF. Is the NEW worker denying that service there would let the client know you're denied here, but I'm going to give your application to TANF. So that we're not running in circles and people aren't doing a 10-page application all over again. Because we're small, we can do that. And all the case managers have a case management meeting every week so that they can, or once a month, I think, actually, I feel so, yeah, once a month to discuss those individuals that, and sometimes they kind of try to go back and forth to see what, to think that we don't talk. But that's what I did use. So they will scan that maybe NEW application as their TANF application for services. So there is an audit trail to that document.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Delia. Brittany.
Yeah, I was sorry, I was talking on mute.
You're okay.
I'll add to that. We do have one application within our department where a participant accessing services can apply for all of our services. Of course, we have over 19 services just within our department. So we have one application. We also have a screening process that participants go through prior to filling out an application. So an eligibility technician will meet with them, screen them to see what services they may be potentially eligible for, and then encouraging them to apply for those services. We as an organization right now are currently in the development stages of working across a case management system where participants internally could fill out one application for service. Now, as far as community-based, it would be beautiful, and I agree with Karen, that we're dreaming that the one application process across an entire community would be absolutely wonderful.
I think we're all dreaming that, including, I think, state and locality jurisdictions. I think they're dreaming about it as well. So I'm hopeful for that in the future. Nicole, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I would just like to piggyback on that. We would love to have that type of application that would make life very easy in our world. The only thing that we did do was combine PEEF application, and if they qualified for TANF instead, those applications were intermingled. They intermingled. But it would be great if you are a tribal TANF with your tribe, if there were an overall application for all the different services within the tribe. That would be something that could be, it could be very doable. But that is definitely having my wheels going at the moment to do an overall one underneath TANF or underneath the Reorient.
For sure, for sure.
Thank you for that suggestion.
And something I think that could contribute to moving that farther along is, I think the current Farm Bill contains a provision that allows federally recognized tribes to operate their own SNAP programs. So that would move the ability, right, would move it under the tribe. So that would go, I think, a long way in helping to again, unify application and eligibility processes for many of the same safety net programs that folks apply for. Please join me in thanking Nicole, Brittany, and Delia for such an amazing session. Thank you so much, ladies. It was wonderful. We are all virtually clapping for you. Thank you. Thank you. And
thank you for your time.
Thank you. And again, the slide deck has been put into the chat. So just follow the link that's been put in the chat. It's on Visibo. And now I would like to hand the mic to my colleague, Rebecca Horsechief, and she'll be leading our next session.
Hi, hello, how are you all doing? I'm going to have to quickly minimize here, and they started working on our street just as I was getting ready to present. So I quickly moved to my bedroom, so my apologies. Hello, welcome. You guys have made it to the strengthening partnerships between Tribal TANF and Child Welfare. You're almost finished for the day. It's been a lovely past days. My name is Rebecca Horsechief. I'm an enrolled citizen of the Great Osage Nation from Pawhuska, Oklahoma. I am the Family Assistance Program Specialist for the Division of Tribal TANF Management and the Office of Family Assistance within ACF. Region 8, so I'm based out of Denver. Real quickly, in my capacity as a Family Assistance Program Specialist, I have the great responsibility of overseeing the administrative activities related to OFA tribal programs, including Tribal TANF, Native Employment Works, and Tribal TANF Child Welfare Discretionary Grants. So previously I worked at the National American Indian Court Judges Association. It was a national nonprofit, the only one of its kind, addressing and building justice capacity, restorative justice, all that good stuff. I have a law degree from OU, and I got my undergrad from UNM. I'd also like to introduce Lisa Flores, one of our panelists. She is the Tribal TANF Child Welfare Project Director. She's a member of the Pasquayaqui tribe, which is located in Arizona within the reservation. It's located, and the reservation is actually located in Tucson. However, there are several other Yaqui communities in the state. Lisa has worked with Pascua Yaqui for over 20 years and has worked for the Social Services Department specifically for 3 years under this TTCW grant project. We also have Scott. Scott is the director of the Federated Indians of Grant and Rancheria, Tribal TANF of Sonoma and Marin. And please, if I've got that wrong, you can correct me, Scott, when you come on. For the past 10 years, Scott Boyle has served as the director and developed program and services that empower the Native communities of Marin and Sonoma counties. Annually, the TANF program has provided over 500 Native youth with back to school supplies, transported over 50 Native youth to college campus tours, and provided access to after school programming for over 50 Native youth. The adults in our TANF, in their TANF Cash Aid program, have been so successful that an annual honoring dinner has been established in celebration of their achievements towards financial and family security. That's awesome. They've also obtained college degrees, vocational certificates, and careers through their determination and support of Tribal TANF. Mr. Boyle's educational background is in the interdependent connection between the mind and body, specifically in overcoming barriers. His passion is in facilitating opportunities for people that address generational trauma and institutional barriers that hinder their potential. I just briefly want to visit with you about Tribal TANF child welfare, and my big part of it is to mention the toolkit. As you'll reference the summary for today's panel, I'm going to quickly talk about Tribal TANF child welfare, mention the toolkit, talk about some highlights and or curated resources for future and current Tribal TANF child welfare coordination grantees, touch on the collaboration assessment tool, because that's very specific to Tribal TANF child welfare grantees, mention the logic model, and then I will hand it over to Lisa after that. So just bear with me. It's important to know what this is. So in October of 2020, ACF announced an award of $1.8 million in TANF child welfare coordination grants to 8 tribes and tribal organizations. The grant awards demonstrate models of effective coordination of tribal TANF and child welfare services provided to tribal families at risk of child abuse or neglect. These projects are tailored to meet the needs of each tribe. Their activities are aimed at the coordination of services to improve case management for families eligible for cash assistance from a tribal TANF program, to provide supportive services and assistance to tribal children in out-of-home placements and the tribal families caring for such children, including families who adopt such children, and to provide prevention services and assistance to tribal families at risk of child abuse and neglect. So the project period for these grants is 5 years. The folks that I'm working with, I started with, and we are in our 2nd year. So it's pretty exciting. So you'll see in the chat, they're going to drop a link, or maybe they already have. I can't see because I no longer have my awesome second screen. There's a toolkit. And this toolbox, I'd encourage you to check it out. The link goes directly to our Tribal TANF child welfare site for our website for Division of Tribal TANF Management with ACF. So this toolbox highlights resources and tools that are particularly relevant for current and future Tribal TANF child welfare coordination grantees, and that may also be relevant for other human service programs. Resources included address the following topic areas. So developing and using logic models for systems change. We talk about systems change a lot, but as we know, systems don't change unless people do. So it's, they really need to go hand in hand. Planning for data collection and collecting data, collecting and using stories and program research and dissemination, collaborative approaches to screening and assessment, data sharing, and protecting sensitive information, performance measurement, data-driven decision-making, and continuous quality improvement. Measuring collaboration, measuring program outcomes, dissemination, and sustainability. So right now, it probably sounds like I'm saying a lot of, blah, 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 blah. But believe me, if you're in this, and if you're considering this on applying for a TTCW grant, all of this makes the most sense. And it's completely relevant to the things that you'll need to submit for continuation of your grant funding, but also it's part of collaboration. So each of these topic areas include a brief summary of how the topics align with the purpose, goals, and implementation of these grants, and highlights 3 or more recommended resources. The description of each resource includes a summary of content and how it can be useful in developing, revising, and conducting activities related to TTCW projects performance evaluation. So, but the main purpose of the resource toolbox is to provide selected research, evaluation, and programmatic resources that may be relevant for supporting current and future Tribal TANF child welfare grantees. So just really quickly, the resource toolbox highlights curated resources for future and current grantees in the following ways. So developing and using logic models, planning for data collection, collecting and using stories, collaborative approaches, sharing data, performance measurement, data-driven decision-making, measuring program outcomes, and dissemination of information. Something really interesting about this particular grant also, this 5-year grant, is that I was sharing this with the folks in the green room, is that I hadn't heard of a collaboration assessment tool until I started working with the Tribal TANF child welfare grantees. It's very specific to these grantees. So there's a heavy emphasis on collaboration because these projects are funded focusing on collaboration in order to achieve systems change, which means collaboration becomes a standard way of working together for the benefit of families. It's not just so we can, run you through the mill and, all in an effort to maintain your grant. It's so that cross-program collaboration results in staff assisting families more effectively. And by collaborating across programs, tribal families and child welfare that are at high risk are better served. So these families oftentimes have very complex needs. And the goal is to enable tribal participants and/or clients and/or community members to achieve long-term stability and self-sufficiency. I mean, obviously there are benefits of collaboration, but when programs and services are aligned, we can serve tribal families more effectively and address their needs in a more all-encompassing, complete, or comprehensive way. So this CAT that is specific to Tribal TANF child welfare is a tool for monitoring and/or measuring and tracking progress of collaboration and coordination. So this tool was built for the grantees to assess their initiatives and partnership performance in a concrete and measurable way, and to identify areas of strength, improvement, as well as track changes in collaboration over time. So all of this is in an effort to say, well, you've got this money, what do we do now? You could do the same, but if you're collaborating, how do you measure it? How do you track these changes? Is it working for you? Nobody says that you're locked into a 5-year grant and that's what you have to do from here on out. The really cool and beauty of this grant is that you can adjust and make changes. And I know it's been a little shock to OGM sometimes, but that's the beauty of this particular grant, is that, we just went through we're still in a pandemic, but we, endured 2 years of what we endured, and it impacted, home visits, et cetera. So also grant reporting is a little bit easier when you can make this a part of your progress performance report. You can't do the CAT without the logic model. Again, they all work together. You're measuring, you have a model, which is a visual representation, as our contractor JBA likes to say, a roadmap of the connection between program activities and outputs, expected outcomes, services being implemented, program goals, and how the success will be measured. So it too is a tool for monitoring program progress and guides and the hows and whys of various data that will be collected and used in program reporting. So very simply, what resources do you have? What are you putting into it? What will you do? What are your activities and services? Who will be reached? How many, how much? And then what changes will result from your efforts, the outcomes, inputs, activity services, outputs, and outcomes. And I won't go through all of that because I know we have folks to get to, but as you can tell, I really value this grant. And as our esteemed, division director reminds us that this particular grant, these 8 grantees that we have, and it's not to minimize the services or the program itself, it's to say that this is a representation of the 75 national Tribal TANF programs. So if we're looking at these 8 Tribal TANF child welfare grantees in their entirety and for what they represent and who they serve and how they're collaborating, you get a really good sense of how everything else is working. So we're fortunate to have this grant, and I'm fortunate to work with these grantees. And so in moving forward, you'll get to hear how these awesome folks, both Scott, who's a former Tribal TANF Child Welfare Grantee Director, and Lisa, who's a current with Pasquayaki, how they're making it work. So with that, I'll pass it off to these lovely folks, and thank you for allowing me this time and for bearing with my conversation. So Lisa, you're next.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hi, again, my name is Lisa Flores, and I am the current TTCW Project Director with the Pasquayaki Tribe. Like Rebecca mentioned, we are located out in Arizona, and we are also very fortunate enough to be a part of the Tribal TANF Child Welfare Grant, and we've been able to have the grant for the last few years. We were granted a second term. We were originally granted the first funding year between 2016 and 2020. The first grant that we had was more focused on systematic change and focusing on clients. That was what the main idea was behind the first funding project. We were able to lay a lot of our foundation for Tribal TANF Child Welfare Program under the first round. And luckily, we were fortunate enough to be able to get a second term, which is what we're currently in now, which is from 2020 to 2025. We were focusing more on this second funding period on the systematic change, which was something more of the internal collaboration between our adult social services and our children's services program. So we were emphasizing more on that collaboration where we had initially started that in our first phase. So we were glad that we were able to get the second funding because we were able to focus more on being able to develop that relationship between the both units. So now that we're able to focus on social services as a whole rather than two different units. And then with that being said, that allows us to better serve our clients, be more efficient with their services, and be more effective as well. So we were very, very lucky. And like I said, our name for the project is called the Noe Nawame, which means unity in the Yuame language. So that was a nice little touch for us to be able to personalize the TTCW project for us. So considering, like I said, we had the first initial funding for systematic change. So we just had to address what the needs were, what programming is we wanted to do. Luckily, during our first phase, we were able to develop a cultural parenting curriculum, which focused on parenting skills, parenting development skills within our culture. We were using a lot of our traditions, our customs, our beliefs. We were able to incorporate that into a manual along with some other ideas and objectives from Positive Indian Learning, as well as Growing Great Kids. So we were able to complete this manual to be able to develop a curriculum for our families that we work with. So it's unique to our tribe, it's unique to our program, and it was something we were able to develop under Tribal TANF Child Welfare, the TTCW grant. So that was a big part of our program the last time around. And focusing in this time, the second phase, we still have the cultural parenting going on, but we're also focusing on being able to establish that relationship, be able to streamline the services that we are trying to develop. That way we can completely say we've collaborated both units and that we've been able to strengthen that collaboration between being able to get our families the services they need. We have been able to develop our internal referral process. We've been able to establish a database. We've been able to arrange for joint staffings. We've been able to integrate case plans. So we've been effective in that process. And luckily, the assessment tool that Rebecca was speaking on, the collaboration assessment tool, has been a nice help for us to be able to kind of measure our outcomes and how we're doing and how we're able to improve, moving forward with our project. We are in our second year currently, moving on to our third year. So we're halfway done through the grant, but we've been able to make a lot of progress throughout the whole time that we've had TTCW. In addition to that, and moving forward for the next 2 years of the grant, we're looking at developing more of a system of care framework for our project. So if you move on to the next slides, there's a few items that discuss, next one, please. That'll discuss the framework. And this is still in the works as far as us developing this. It's still a conceptual framework that we're looking at to develop our own system of care under the Tribal TANF Child Welfare Grant to help us develop the sustainability for social services as far as us moving in forward. And one of the things that we are looking for and focusing more on is prevention versus the intervention. So we're trying to do a lot more prevention work rather than having to do the intervention portion of our social works job description. But if you move on to the next slide, you'll see a graph or a chart of how we're looking to implement that once we're able to fine tune what we're looking at. And if you'll see in the right, in the left top corner where it says culture as a protective factor, that is one of the things that we're really focusing on. That is where our cultural parenting comes in. We also have counseling services and other items that we look at that look to strive to focus more on our culture, that our families can reconnect, can, self-identify, be able to reconnect to the tribe. For a lot of our families, some of them didn't grow up on the reservation, aren't familiar with their history, have been so disconnected that we're trying to bring them back to back to our culture so that they can feel grounded again. The second quadrant is more of our services that we have. This focuses more on our life, positive engagement, lifelong learning skills. We do have our family preservation for our families that are involved. That way they can learn the tools and get the tools they need to be better parents, be more engaging as a family, focus more on positive, try to eliminate some of the barriers that will, sometimes interfere as a family unit. We also look for ways for our family to develop more self-sufficiency. So we look a lot for them to learn their, work skills training in general. That way they're able to be self-reliant. We do have our Center for Employment Training program, along with several other workforce programs that we have. So those are the services that we look for as far as them being engaged in our program. And the bottom two quadrants that we have are more based on the overall outcomes and measurements of what we want from all the units. We're looking at both internally along with our partners. We do want to partner with our health services department. Those are behavioral health units, our children mental health areas, things like that, where we can focus on lifelong learning, where we can definitely figure out those measurable outcomes and other different items like that. So again, this is just a framework of what we're trying to do. It's still in the works. We're still trying to finalize it, and hopefully maybe we can actually get this going and off the ground sometime in the next 2 years with the program, with the grant still in place. And then just moving forward, just looking at the different items, there's different areas that we're trying to focus on to help us along. And of course, going back to what Rebecca mentioned, as far as having to revise our logic model, having to adapt the new assessment so that we can review what we're currently doing, how we can improve all of that. And then of course, just overall trying to figure out how we can better implement our cultural aspect of it to be able to reach out to our families and incorporate all of that for the services and be more efficient in our services with our families. So like I said, we've been very fortunate to have 2 terms with the TTCW grant. It has helped develop and has we've been able to streamline a lot of communication and been able to develop a lot of the platforms that we're able to utilize as far as being able to get data, cross-check items and things like that. So other than that, I really don't know. I think that's pretty much all I have to report on or present on for my project. Does anybody have any questions, or is that something that we're going to talk about later on? Like I said, those are just some items that we're talking about as far as having to move forward to move with our system of care that we're trying to develop here with the revising our logic model, creating our own self-assessments, and then just continuing to implement our cultural aspect of into our services. And I think that's it. I think that's the last slide.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Can you remind me, the folks behind the scenes, were we going to take the break now, or are we going to cruise right into our next presenter? Hannah, are you on?
Yes, we're going right into Scott's presentation.
All right, Scott, you're up to bat.
There. Well, thank you, Rebecca, and hello, everybody, virtually once again. It's nice to see you all and the names that I'm familiar with and can't see the pictures, but I'm happy to be here and present. I'm going to spend just a little bit of time. As Rebecca had mentioned, we were a previous grantee. We did have the TTCW grant between 2016 and 2020. The slides are basically going to just kind of show what we achieved while we had the grant. And then I'll take a little bit of time afterwards to talk about what we have been able to maintain since the grant had ended. And I know that's a big part of the TTCW grantee process is how are you going to sustain programs and services and a lot of the actions that you've done after that funding source ends. So I'll get a little bit into there. But as for me, again, my name is Scott Boyle. I am the director of Tribal TANF of Sonoma and Marin, which is run by the Federated Indians of Great and Rancheria. We are roughly, our tribal offices are roughly an hour north of San Francisco, but the ancestral territory is Marin County, which is just on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, probably about 3 highway hours up through Sonoma County. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we did receive this grant. We received it 2015 and 2015, 2016 kind of started the services for it. The grant really had 3 main components to it. And those 3 main components were focusing on case management with an improved home visiting component, increasing services and supports for children and youth in out-of-home placements, and an improved youth prevention program, which includes intensive case management approach with employment and training leadership. The idea around what we were really looking at is we had our TANF program, and our TANF program was functioning. We also had tribal programs within Great and Rancheria that had programs that they were running. And then also when we talk child welfare, we're also talking about the county's family, youth, and children's services, predominantly Sonoma County, just because that's where the majority of our cases were. But we were really looking at all of these programs and functions, and they're operating basically siloed, and referrals weren't necessarily the warm handoff that people were talking about in the presentation previous to this one. It was more of, you know, hey, that service is for you over there. And everything just kind of seemed to be, well, that's for you over there and that's for you over there. And we really wanted to try to find a way to break down those silos and totally coordinate the delivery of services and the processes that families were going through so that we can be better advocates for the families that we were working with. And that was the big general idea within kind of those 3 components that we were looking at when we began the grant. Next slide, please. This right here is our logic model. I put it in here just because the logic model was such an important part of the child welfare grant. And I knew people would have access to the slides. So that's there, that's ours. Everyone will have a chance to look at it. I just don't have much to say on it, but that's what it looked like. Next slide, please. Okay, one of the goals that we had, and we had 3 goals as we were going through. One of the goals that we had was to improve programs with the implementation of cross-systems collaboration. And this is really what I was talking about, is how do we collaborate, but not just how do we collaborate or partner or whichever word we want to use for it, but how do we interact with each other as we're going through them? Again, those big 3 components, or actually 4 components of it, was our TANF program. Great Rancheria, as a part of a Department of Justice grant many years ago, started a wellness and justice program, which the wellness and justice did all of the ICWA work. They did a lot of the behavioral health, a lot of the school advocacy, and a lot of the parenting work and parenting classes that were going on with different families. And then with the county's Family, Youth, and Children's Services and our own youth and family program services, those are kind of the big 4 that we were talking about on how are we going to create those cross-system collaborations. What it really turned out to is none of them were less important, was all the different partnerships that you have with a TANF program and looking at resources and making sure that your families had everything. You know, TANF can do a lot, which is wonderful, but a big part of this grant was a kind of looking at it as, but TANF can do more with the grant. And so how are we connecting people to different resources? And if those resources weren't available, how are we as a collective group with the TANF participant and their family involved in that process as well? How do we get them connected to the resources that they want to get to, and see what that does in leading to long-term stability or self-sufficiency? Next slide, please. So the statistics of this is kind of what we reached in the time frame. So it was 174 families received some type of support services during the time frame of the grant, and that was wound up being 619 individuals, 196 kids, 423 adults. Of the families that we were working with in that time frame, 26 of them were children that were in out-of-home placements, and that was 48 of those tribal youth that were in out-of-home placements. Next slide, please. Statistically, and you know, data is obviously an important part of TANF work and an important part of reporting and grant writing. As we started to really break down these the silos and get involved, we did get a MOU with Sonoma County, and that MOU was really important because it turned into kind of a data share on their end on how many Native families were getting contacted by Family, Youth, and Children's Services over there, who those families were, and then how can we connect them to our TANF program and get them the services that we might be able to provide for them in coordination with county services that they might have been receiving. It also led to big increases over the 5-year period, obviously 367% increase on our participation in probation court and county meetings. It was really important that we were there early. And a big part of this grant is that a lot of the times we were being notified or brought into cases as they were after they could have been prevention cases. So this increase in communication really got us in earlier and allowed us to get into child welfare cases more in the prevention state instead of in the active state that they sometimes get into. Next slide, please. Then with the ICWA family meetings, and that was again with the County of Sonoma, they began doing an ICWA roundtable, and so we were a part of the ICWA roundtable. It was half educational on tribes end to the county end of essentially informing them what ICWA is and what ICWA means and how important ICWA is, and getting them to follow the law much better of ICWA as they were in the services. But it was also a chance to share promising practices and get resources out there, or not resources, but how to get families connected to our Tribal TANF program, to make sure that the families were getting the resources that we had and getting into some of the processes that we had, anywhere from prevention programs to maybe they were eligible for a cash aid or an emergency or a diversion type of service. So those those contacts increased greatly. I would love to say that the increase in contacts was a direct correlation into the understanding on the county's end. That wasn't necessarily true. There wasn't over 300% of understanding on their end. A part of that is just breaking down of systems. Another part of it is the county has a significant amount of turnover. So there was some repetitive parts as we went through that we felt that we had to now train new people all over again. Next slide, please. So wellness and justice, and again, that's the department that we have internally with Grayton Rancheria. They not only just serve Grayton citizens, but they are amazing partners with our Tribal TANF program. And what we started to do is created through a lot of the trainings that we were going through is a very coordinated referral process. And what that referral process was doing was allowing our TANF family advocates to meet their families when they were first coming into the program, go through, motivational interviewing or assessments or whichever they were doing to get to get information on that and build those relationships with them, and then start saying, hey, wellness and justice, you might want to look into this, or you might want to look into meeting with this family, and then get into that warm handoff of TANF advocate working with wellness and justice. What those referrals led to was much different plan building for TANF, the family self-sufficiency plans. It was a much different take to it because instead of the advocate sitting with the family and writing up the plan actually became a collaborative effort. So we were pulling more people into that planning process and more people into looking at the goals, which then started to really make it easier on identifying work participation goals, which made it really easier on identifying what we needed to do to stabilize the family so we can get them into whatever pathway we wanted to get into them. But those referrals were essential in doing that. So it was a big part of the success we saw during the grant, and we can hopefully, we do continue to see. Next slide, please. So again, focusing on the case management work, collectively pulling everybody together and working with families. During the time frame of that grant, we saw 137% increase in our families getting into unsubsidized employment, which was a big success of ours as we went through, and contributing a lot of factors of partnerships and pulling in that I guess multidisciplined planning process. Next slide, please. So during the grant period, we got to the point where 22% of our families were in coordinated education services, and then 37% of those families were actually in more comprehensive services that were at a minimum of 2 organizations that were working with them. So what that kind of looked like is that many of the different places that we were coordinating with, these families were connected to multiple different agencies, kind of all collaboratively working together to reach to one goal. So in some cases, that was they were engaged in the child welfare, they were engaged with wellness and justice, they were engaged with youth and family, and then they were engaged in different partnerships we created with like Santa Rosa Junior College or different credit recovery programs or things like that. Next slide, please. Between the start of the grant that we got and then as we hit the COVID-19 pandemic, 15% of our families were moving from our cash aid program into our transitional program. Our transitional program is for families that income out of the 175% federal poverty guidelines, which is our eligibility for cash aid. And then they would move into a transitional program where we can provide support services for them to continue to pursue training and education opportunities within their employment to try to get them over what our cap would be of 300%. But they would still get 24 months of support services after their cash aid, after they qualified out of cash aid. Next slide, please. So our second goal was to improve the support services component, and really start to get staff trained. And we just didn't see a difference between support services and TANF and trained staff, and the importance of trained staff and community members. We wanted our families to really understand what this program can do, which meant a lot of training on this is really what our program does and how that works. It also was a big training with staff on different services that might be available, and then also what resources are available that can provide support services that maybe our TANF grant wasn't able to provide, or maybe the child welfare grant wasn't able to provide. Next slide, please. So between 2016 and 2019, we provided training to 99 figure and tribal TANF staff. That 99 number, right? We don't have 99 staff in our TANF program, and what we were really doing was looking at, if somebody came to the tribal office, we wanted everybody trained in different ways of working with those families. And so we wanted everybody that worked at the office trained in trauma-informed care. We wanted everybody trained in systems of care. We wanted everybody trained in protective factors and decolonized thinking and mindfulness. And we really wanted the families, as they came in, to have a different experience than we knew that they were having at the county, or we knew that they were having at other agencies that took more of that, you know, pull a tag, have a number, we'll call you when you're ready kind of experience. It was important to us that if we were going to get to where we wanted to get to, the families had to understand that that we were in partnership with them as well as a part of our transformation. Then we did provide trainings to 279 parents in positive Indian parenting, gang awareness, and school-based advocacy. The school-based advocacy was a huge one for us. You know, for people that go and do IEPs, or people that are working with schools just speak a different language. And I don't know if it's intentional. I'm going to hope that it isn't, but the language that schools use with parents is confusing to everybody. And we would go with parents to expulsion hearings, to truancy meetings, to parent-teacher conferences, just to help parents get comfortable teaching or speaking to school systems. And it still is an important part of the work that we do, because we want the parents actively engaged in their youth, in their education, just because it's such an important part of getting kids through school with a degree and with the opportunity to do whatever it is that they want to do when they finish high school. Next slide, please. So we also, with this grant, we created family nights, and family nights, the first year that we started them, we were averaging about 103 people at our family nights, which grew to about 283 by the time that the grant was done, or right before the COVID pandemic came. Family nights was our way of getting information out to families. We would provide, everybody would show up. We would have it at the ballroom of our casino. Families would come, we'd have dinner, and then we would provide information to the parents. So we'd get our youth and family staff, we'd move the kids to a different room, have fun activities with the kids, but it was really then to sit and talk with parents about different things that is happening, different, you know, how to deal with difficult teenagers, how to deal with difficult kids, and that you know, might be giving parents a little bit of a hard time, how to deal with school systems. We did have some gang task force people come in, because there was starting to be a little bit of an uptick in some of our kids being curious about gangs. So there was a little bit on awareness of, when we started going through PG&E power outage, and we got really hit hard by fires and evacuations and stuff like that, as we had it so that the county was there to talk to everybody about just awareness of what alerts are like, what alerts are going to come through, how to be on the systems to get alerts, all the way to having our Santa Rosa City Schools Indian, the Indian education coordinator, come and talk to families, making sure that the paperwork's being filled out so that they're getting the Indian education programs getting funded in the way that it should get. So it was really just a way of getting information out, but also pulling community together and bringing people together in one room so we could talk about everything. And it also got us a chance to get everybody engaged in our summer programs and get applications and all that stuff done. Next slide, please. Our third goal was to improve prevention services to tribal children, youth, and families at risk of abuse and neglect. This had a lot, this was everything to do about training our youth. And you could go to the next slide if you can, please. When we got this grant, our youth, and we had after school program happening already, but what we really did was pull our youth together. They started what they named was the Native American Youth Action Team, or NIAT as we call it. And it's a year-long prevention-based program that does a ton of stuff, all the way from tracking kids to make sure that they are getting the credits that they need to get to graduate high school. And if they're not getting those credits, to either get them into our credit recovery program, because we have a way of getting some credit recovery done, or getting them connected to their school district so that they can continue to recover credits and graduate on time. But during that 5-year span, we served 132 kids in that program. And what we also got to in that program is we grew it into a subsidized employment program as well, where kids were getting trained on being peer-to-peer leaders. We have a wonderful partner by the name of Jerry Bruno, who does all these trainings with our kids. But she would lead the trainings on peer-to-peer mentorship and leadership, so that by the time our kids were juniors and seniors, we were using them to be counselors in our summer programs for elementary school age youth. Next slide, please. We did college tours. We would call local colleges and talk to their Native American student bodies or Native American student organizations that they had. They would provide a tour of the colleges and sit and spend time talking to the kids and asking questions on their pathway to college. It got our kids on a college campus. It got them in front of their peers who were, their process to college and their pathway to college was very similar to what our kids were going through. And so it's just a better way of making them see that college is possible, and that they have support when they do get to the colleges from their peers. Next slide, please. Out of that NIAT program during the time, so out of those 132 youth, 93% graduated high school. And of those 93 that graduated, 67 went on into post-secondary education. So they continued education afterwards. And so that is my slides. Since we had the grant, a lot had happened, right? Like the pandemic happened right when that grant was closing. We have been able to keep a lot of the programs that we did. We've been able to keep everything pretty much intact. The hard part was relearning how to do everything. Everything that we went through training, all of the work that we were doing was so focused on relationship and individual work, and making connections between providers and TANF participants, and really being side-by-side participants as we go. And as you all are totally aware of, it went from being on couches with people or walking in parks with people to being on Zoom with people. And it's just different. It's harder. It's more difficult. Our attendances did go down. People had serious Zoom fatigue. Our trainings shifted to where we were getting more internally into trainings around compassion fatigue, trainings around wellness, trainings around self-care and those types of things. But from a services piece, we kept it all going. We've been able to continue to do it. It's been remote. Our office is just open to the public in July. So we're pretty fresh in coming out of the pandemic on in-person ones. And then the one that we really got impacted by is as the pandemic started, we had scheduled a long, comprehensive week-long training on home visiting, and we didn't get to do it because the pandemic shut everything down and everything closed down, and our grant ended at the time. So I did see a question pop up on the home visiting. We didn't get as far as we really wanted to on that part of it. And we were going to get more into an evidence-based comprehensive home visiting program as we were there. So that's all that I have for that. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening to me, and I'll wait for questions and have a nice day.
I think Rebecca is going to field questions. She may have had some wrap up comments as well.
Actually, I think.
There we go.
Oh, sorry, Julie. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was just waiting for you to come back on. Thank you.
Yeah, I was chilling out, waiting to see if the chat was going to populate with some questions. But I think Scott, in addition to his powerful presentation, he was also fielding the chat as well. So you saw the question about home visitation. So that was answered. Are there folks, if you want to come on, you don't necessarily have to put it in the chat, but if you want to unmute yourselves and ask questions that way as well.
I think someone asked if staff who were trained in home visitation and the positive Indian parenting, did they utilize curriculums, and was the staff able to execute those learned curriculums with their families?
Yes. So I also forgot to mention that all our family advocates also went through motherhood and fatherhood as sacred training. And that is all stuff that they've been able to directly work with their families on. A lot of the positive Indian parenting part came through our wellness and justice program. So families that they were working with in positive Indian parenting was a part of their regular work that they were doing. But it was really important to us that our family advocates knew about the program, because they're another form of support. So, and it was the breakdown of the silos. So just because wellness and justice has all this information, it's no benefit to then go to your advocate to talk about your advocate and say that this is what we're working on, and then to say, well, geez, I don't know anything about that. So it was really just to get it kind of all wrapped into one, to where we were all hopefully speaking the same language and kind of walking the same walk as we went along.
So I was the one that asked that question regarding getting those trainings, because I'm currently working with Lisa Flores as a navigator with TTCW, but alongside working with that training, I'm also working with TANF as a case manager, so I kind of do both things differently. When you train staff, especially like with the home visitation and positive Indian parenting, and then the other one that you just mentioned right now, how successful was it that staff knew of these curriculums and they knew how important it was to like basically execute different things for different clients? Did you see like better communication with staff, better knowledge, and giving them all this information to be able to share with clients? Did you see better success rates with the clients?
Yeah, during that 5-year pathway, we kind of had a good little explosion in positive outcomes. There's a lot of other contributing factors that go on with that. So I wouldn't just say it was this, but
right.
Just the fact of us communicating better with each other had total ripple effects, right? Because we went from our families coming to meet with an advocate or coming to meet with somebody, and they were just talking what they're working on with somebody else, and the other person then had to stop them, go backwards to say, I don't know what you're talking about, to then go forwards again. So it got seamless, and I really think that it got our families understanding that we were all in this together. Like, we're all communicating together. We all know what we're doing together, which was way more important than saying that the siloed piece that I started off with.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. This was so informative. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Looks like we have another one in the chat. Julie, did you see that? So these classes or activities are being recorded towards the WPR. And that's important, especially for our TANF, well, for everybody on here, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, we were doing all of that. No,
yes, all caps.
if you're not, so wellness is a part of almost every TANF participant family that we have. Wellness is a part of their plan. And if it's a part of their plan, it's a work participation hour for us. And so if we're not capturing work that people are doing for their own wellness and their family wellness, I think we start to recreate the county model of saying, go get a job and work, 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 work. There's more to success in all of this than just go work, 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 work. Like be well. Take care of yourself. You know, we're all experiencing it, right? The pandemic has challenged all of our wellness. So we shouldn't be able to sit and say our wellness is being challenged and then families, you just plug away, right? We got to support that as well.
Yep. Julie. Are there any more questions, folks? And please feel free to come off mute if you'd like to, if that's easier for y'all.
I have one more question really quick. How did you get case managers to successfully engage, or any program that you collaborated with when trying to get them trained?
Successfully is a fun word, right?
Yeah, it's a creative word.
For some, engagement just meant that they were at a table with us and listening to what we had to say. I don't think for our family case managers, we say family advocates, it's all. I don't think that engagement part was very difficult. I think it was the breaking down of old habits of how this work is done. And then once we started getting into systems of care, trauma-informed care, bringing all these different trainings in, it was really, it's really a shift internally as a person who works in social services of re-looking at everything you've done for however many years. And so I don't know if it was so much of getting them to change because the investment had always been there and the dedication had always been there. I think it was getting to change and then talking with each other about what are you doing and what are you doing and this isn't working and that is working, but it's really, it was really more of just committing to changing how this work can be done and then start to see the results, which is always the hard part, right? Because results are never, they take time.
Yeah, they do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all the questions. We have just a few minutes here. Julie, I don't know if we want to let folks stretch around before the closeout with Tanea, or if we want to.
Sure, if folks don't have any other questions, but just a couple of minutes. If folks can take a quick break, just 2 or 3 minutes, just run out. And as always, take a break when you have to as well. But yeah, why don't we take just 2 or 3 minutes and we will come back.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you so
for the presenters.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
Dude, that is so
Thank you so much. Welcome back, everyone. So, one of our greatest intents in planning this meeting was to foster connection and to create a sense of belonging and inclusion, and to engender empowerment and inspiration. In this spirit, we wanted the final feeling that we leave you with to be one of inspiration and heart. So to this end, we're honored and pleased to have with us a genuinely inspiring teacher, speaker, and leader whom we are confident will help us to close out our 3-day meeting in a good way. Delia Winder is an author, singer, songwriter, poet, and motivational speaker who comes from an intertribal lineage of Southern Ute, Pyramid Lake Paiute, and Duckwater Shoshone nations, where she is an enrolled citizen. She received a BA in English from Stanford University and an MFA in creative writing from the University of New Mexico. Winder's poetry collections include Words Like Love and Why Storms Are Named After People, and Bullets Remain Nameless. Delia's performances and talks blend storytelling, singing, and spoken word to teach about different expressions of love and heart work. Her specialties include youth and women empowerment, healing trauma through art, creative writing workshops, and mental wellness advocacy. Would you please join me in welcoming Delia Winder?
Good afternoon, everyone. Mike Nunania Delia Winder, Nunania Chumutwachich Mamach. I introduced myself in the Ute language. I'm, as was said in my bio, I'm an enrolled citizen of the Duckwater Shoshone Nation, but I am also Pyramid Lake Paiute and Southern Ute. I was raised on the Southern Ute Reservation, which is my father's community. And so I'm gonna go ahead and actually open with a song. I'm gonna open with a song on my guitar. Hopefully there is not a lag. And I'm gonna I'm gonna step away for just 1 second because my cat is pounding on the door and he will scream if I don't open it. So I will be right back with my guitar. All right, my apologies. It's so funny. I'm not sure how many of you have pets out there in this virtual world, but mine are always quiet the whole day until I'm about to do something with hundreds of people. And then they're like, I'm here, love me. But I'm gonna show them some love too. They'll like the music. So part of me, for me, like getting grounded, I love to start every session I do with this grounding. For so many of us, a lot of us are on our journeys to learn our tribal languages. And for me, I know I introduced myself in my language, but that's kind of where my vocabulary ends. For a long time, I used to feel such shame that I wasn't able to speak my language, and so envious and proud of all my friends who could speak their language and share their long introductions. And like I said, I used to feel such shame about it. And then it took me a while to get to the point where I realized, I shouldn't feel ashamed of it, because this was something that was stolen from me. It was stolen from my ancestor. It was stolen when my grandmother was taken from her reservation when she was just 8 years old and put into boarding school where she didn't know what was going to happen. She didn't know if they would have food. She told me that her dad had some of those little chocolate Hershey kisses, and that she just threw them in her suitcase because when they took her and her siblings, she didn't know if they would have food. So she just took those candies. To this day, I cope by eating chocolate, that was passed down to me, but, the things that happen in boarding school, and because my grandmother was made to feel that being Native wasn't worth anything, she didn't pass on her language to us. Sorry, you can hear my cat. Okay, sorry about that. My husband is home now, so he will deal with the cat, but, my grandmother didn't teach her language to my mom. She didn't teach it to my aunties, and they didn't teach it to any of their children. So now we're all on this journey to relearn. And so in part of that journey to relearn, one of the elders from my father's community, he will send out these newsletters where he'll send out phrases in our Indigenous language. And sometimes they're things that relate. Sometimes they're things that I'm like, okay, I don't know how I can incorporate that into my everyday language, but I'll still try to learn it. And so one of the phrases I saw coming across the email was this phrase, tu te veak. And in the Ute language, that means it's a good day. And so I thought, how do I learn language? How can I reclaim it? I've learned so much about my culture and ceremony through song. So I'm going to add that phrase to a song. So I'm going to start off by just sharing that phrase, that song, tu te veak. And it's in this song. It's called It's a Good Day, because it is a good day. My cats are alive and thriving. I'm here with you all, with people who understand, people who are human and know that we're not perfect, and all the things that have been shared, the lessons that have been shared. I got to listen into some of it. So it's a good day. I'm grateful to be here with you all today. So this is Tu te veak. Woke up this morning to greet the day, lit my sage to give thanks and began to pray. Hey, I ask Creator, do what you can to guide my path. That's all I ask. It's a good day. Ancestors, please protect my spirit, those I hold dearest in my heart. If there are wounds, help me heal them, so others know love even for a minute. It's a good day. So that's Tu te veak. It is a good day, and I encourage all of you to drop into the chat what makes it a good day for you, whether it's today or just a day in general, days where you get to get up and drink water and pray and use your body and exercise. For me, I wanted to share that song with you all, in particular with people who work in communities and with communities, because that is the hard work of heart work, your heart's work, where you get your fire, the seeds you were born with, those positive seeds you want to put out into the world. And we don't always get to see those seeds grow or bloom, but that's your heart work. And when I was working for maybe 15 years before my current job, I worked directly with Native youth from different communities, and sometimes it would carry that heaviness. And I remember, just that burnout. Before I even knew the term burnout, I would bring home that anger. Sometimes I would bring home that frustration. And I remember speaking to another youth worker friend of mine, actually from a rancheria in Northern California, and he was telling me that one of his practices was prayer, and that he would smudge when he got to the office, that he would leave home and not bring whatever he was struggling with at home, that he wouldn't bring it into his work with community and youth. And then he would smudge again at the end of the day because he didn't want to bring that home. And I remember taking on that practice after I heard him say it, because I thought, how am I going to be able to separate those things? That empathy, that compassion, those things that we feel. And sometimes I'll be on my computer, I would be working late at night and not rejuvenating my spirit by spending time with my family, with my cats, with my husband. And so I wanted to share that practice with you all, because it is what led to this song, which is basically a prayer. Ancestor, please protect my spirit, those I hold dearest in my heart. If there are wounds, help me heal them, so others know love even for a minute, because that's what we do. The work that we all do in serving people and serving community, that's medicine. A few years ago I was visiting the Native community in Dallas, Texas, and we were doing a workshop with a youth, and we said, well, what do you do when somebody's sick, or what do you do when somebody's hurt? And the little kid said, you put medicine on it. Like, if there's a wound, you put medicine on it. And to just think about all of those different soul wounds, those historical wounds, the wounds like around, that pain we feel about not speaking our language, maybe not everybody getting access to ceremony or elders or those things. And what we do is medicine. It's a form of medicine, how we put medicine on those wounds. And so I see some people have shared, connecting with others in a meaningful way, the ability to breathe, to see the sun, and to remind ourselves, to ground ourselves in those things. If any of you were at the TANF conference in UC Davis, you might have heard me share some of my stories. So I'm going to share some different stories, but one of the things I encourage people to do is, in finding that balance, is thinking about the elements. Some of you might know like what your sign is. I know I'm a fire sign, so I need to balance myself out, with water, with earth, with air, because I can have that reaction. Like, I can be reactionary. I can, if something happens, I immediately want to fix it, and I don't always leave room for that process, for that dialogue, for that connection. And to me, that is earth, that's grounding. And so I think about, how can I bring that into even my physical workspace and my desk? I have water that I drink. I have smudge. I have my lighter. That's the fire. But, earth, maybe I need to get a plant in here, or, when I need to feel that groundedness, I go for a walk. I'll walk around my neighborhood. One of my neighbors and I will walk. And so I wanted to share that, because it needs to, this next teaching that I want to share with you all about the power of our words, not just in speaking our own languages, not just in prayer, but in the literal words we speak over our lives and of the lives of the people we work with. So I want people to drop into the chat, if you can remember, what were some seeds that were planted in you as a child, that were planted in you as a young person? For me, there've been those good seeds, there've been those negative seeds. I've had people, teachers tell me, before they got to know me, just judging me on my appearance. I've had teachers tell me I wasn't smart, or I wasn't going to be smart, I wasn't good enough. But some positive seeds, this teaching just about words being seeds. My mother always said that you have to be careful of the words you say, the words you speak, the words you think, because you give life to it. And that's why it's important. Thank you for sharing. I see Crystal and people are dropping in the chat. Kindness, every story, everyone has a story that's worth sharing. And my mom always says that, we give life to these words that we say. And I believe it, that breath of life, our energy. So that's why it's important not to say things in anger about each other or ourselves. I'm sure maybe some of us in our professional careers early on have maybe had people, or even unfortunately people we're serving might say like, you're stupid, or you're incompetent. How could you have messed that up? And, by lunchtime, that person might have forgotten that they said it. And, maybe we were the ones that said those things. We might have forgot that we told somebody that by lunchtime. And then that person goes home, that seed has taken root. They're thinking that they're not good enough. They're thinking that they're incompetent. And then they carry that with them the next day and the next day to work. And it happens with the youth we work with too. Sometimes they might get bullied and be told that they're not worthy, that they're not smart. And then they carry those things. And we even do it to ourselves. And we might not say it to ourselves. We might not say I'm stupid or I'm not good enough, but we do it in our actions sometimes by not applying for that grant or not applying for that promotion. We're on the back end saying, I'm not deserving of this. I'm not worthy of it. So we have to be careful of the seeds we plant. We have to plant them with positivity, with that good intention, because our words have power. Our words can be like that prayer. They have impact. And that's why I love storytelling. I love thinking of storytelling as a form of medicine, because we are made of stories. And, I had heard once that the shortest distance between two people is a story. And so one story that is going to lead into this next song I'm going to share, again, just working with community and working with youth, having to, sometimes make those child protective service reports, sometimes, being a state mandated reporter in my former role, like having to abide and follow those things. And sometimes having that feel, actually always having that feel like that's never enough. Like making a report is never enough. Like what's going to happen to this child? What's going to happen to this person? And so many times that would weigh on me. Or, a lot of my students, they would be in different states and I couldn't always be there physically, but hearing, somebody who is queer feeling unsafe in their parents' home, or hearing about different instances of abuse and things like that, and just feeling powerless. But then reminding myself, of my mother's words, of my grandmother's words, of these lessons we've carried, since time immemorial, about just the power of prayer. That prayer can have that power, that speaking those positive words and wishes and prayers and blessings of somebody does have an impact as well too. So this next song that I'm going to share is based off of those experiences, when all you could do is pray, but believing that that prayer is enough. And so this song is called Pray for You. And so for any of you who are dealing with situations like that, where you feel like you want to do more, or you feel like what you're doing isn't enough, just to remind you that what you are doing is enough. You play an important role. You play an important stop, sometimes an important intervention in people's lives. You're that help step up sometimes. You give that people that uplift. And so this is called Pray for You. He told me that he just wasn't enough. The world told him as a man to be tough. You got tears, son, you just bottle 'em up. Is this love? Is this love? She kept telling me how everything went wrong. She kept singing these sad, sad songs. Asked the sky to please open up. What's love? What's love? All I could do is pray. I pray, I pray, I pray for you. All I could do is pray. I'll pray for you. When you're home and your heart are in a lot of pain, you just can't see a way to survive another day. Wake up begging Creator to take you away. Not today, it's okay. I pray for you when I don't know what else to do. Put tobacco down and I send my prayers up. Creator, please send light to the ones I love. There is love. This is love. All I could do is pray. I pray, I pray, I pray for you. All I could do is pray. I'll pray for you. 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 that was pray for you. So I do pray for all of you, for all the work that you do, for that much needed hard work that you do. Because each of us were born with a purpose. And as someone shared in the chat, each of us was born with a story, and that story matters. And we might not get to share those stories with hundreds of thousands of people. It might just be with our coworkers or with our clients or with our families or communities that we serve. But your story matters and your voice matters too. I think one of the things I wanted to share too is just the importance of community care. When I was a little girl, my mother would never let us go out on New Year's Eve because she said that celebrating just that countdown right before midnight was a white man's thing, that it wasn't what we should do. Like we had to honor the whole year. And so this elder in our community, he would do a sobriety walk. Every New Year's Day, he would do a sobriety walk. So this is also why we couldn't stay out late, because we had to be up at 6 a.m. We'd all meet at the park, and then we would walk, and we called it the walk. And every year we would add a mile onto this walk. So as a young person, some of us were walking 10 miles, 12 miles. And every mile, we would stop, we would put down tobacco, and we would pray for those people whose journeys, whose lives were cut short because of alcohol, because of substance abuse. And I remember being so afraid of that walk sometimes when I was little, thinking like, how am I going to walk that far? How am I going to be able to do this by myself? But the thing was, I never did it by myself. We walked together. There were elders walking, there were other kids walking, and everybody in between, and you could walk with the person whose pace you wanted to match. And there were cars, like care cars, that followed us, people who volunteered to be drivers and would meet us at the mile markers and would take people to go to the bathroom who needed the bathroom, or they had food and drinks and snacks in there. Or if you were too tired to walk 1 mile, you could get in the car, catch that reprieve, take that breath, and get back to walking with everybody again. And I've always thought about that, whenever I'm lucky to be able to work with community, with my people, is to think about how am I walking this path in that way? How am I making sure that there's somebody, to give the food and nutrients, whether that is physically food or just that emotional care for people on this journey? How am I making sure that there's, that those people even have enough gas, like extending that metaphor, like what feeds them? Like, how can we make sure everybody in our camp, everybody caretaking this fire, has a role, has a purpose, but feels included, because we're all in that journey together. And a large part of that, too, I feel like in wanting to still walk, I had said I was afraid at first. And I have since learned to think about reframing how I think about fear. When I was, I think right after I had done one of my first big talks, and I had got this standing ovation. So you think I would be happy, like, I got this standing ovation, but just because of my anxiety and the person I am, I was just like, oh, I messed up this one part. Like, I'm just thinking about all the bad things that I've done. And so I'm at this event afterward, and this lady comes up to me, just a nice, innocent lady giving me props. And I just unload onto her like, oh my gosh, I messed up and stuff. But she said, well, you know what fear means? She's like, you sound afraid. You know what fear stands for? She said, false expectations about reality. And I had to let that sit with me, because being, again, an anxious person, I think that is my trauma coping mechanism. I want to plan for all the worst case scenarios. And so I'm glad she got me to shift my thinking about it, but I kind of wanted to indigenize it. I wanted to make it my own. Like, when I think about fear, I don't want to feel afraid. I want to be brave, and I can be braver by thinking about my ancestors. For me, this was what fear means: fiercely embrace ancestral resilience. And not just what fear means, but what I do when I feel afraid. I think about my grandma. I think about how, someone like me today, if I get afraid of being lost, I have my phone. Like, I can literally GPS my way, hopefully out of anywhere where I'm at in the city. But my grandma, she didn't have that. She didn't have a phone. She didn't know if she was going to be okay. She had to be so brave, and it was her bravery that the reason why I'm sitting here today, the reason why I'm breathing in this body today. When I write poetry in addition to music, I write books, and I remember telling my grandma, like, I want to write about your life. And she said, well, you should write about your grandpa, because he's the one who went to college, he went to Bacone, he did these things. And right there is where colonialism catches us, right? Because I love my grandpa, but he didn't matter. He wasn't important because of his degree. It was because of who he was and all that he taught me. And I told my grandmother, I want to write about you, because somehow you've gone through all of this, and I've never heard you say a harsh word. You have just only spoken to me in this language of love and cooking and feeding us and care, and you somehow came out the other side unscathed, and you made us who we are today. So whenever I feel afraid, I think of that. I think of, how am I going to fiercely embrace my ancestral resilience? And I don't ever want to do it in a shamey way, like my grandmother survived this. It's just what it is, that I have that strength in here. Yes, anything I share, feel free to share. I also sometimes feel like ownership can be colonialist and capitalistic as well. And our shared knowledge, our communal knowledge is what makes us stronger, is what gives us that power. So anything I share, you can take. But all this to say, some of the work we do is beautiful, and we are grateful to bear witness to it and to help people on their paths, on their journeys. Like I said, we plant seeds, and we plant them with positivity. And sometimes, we lose seeds along the way. It doesn't grow the way we had hoped and wished. Sometimes things happen that hurt and damage our spirit. Sometimes, we're not perfect. We're human. Sometimes we might get frustrated. We might drop a ball here and there. We might make mistakes. We might lash out to loved ones in anger. These things can spill over. If we don't address our emotions and our feelings, things can spill over. And I remember negatively trying to cope with some of that spillover myself. For me, I used to try to numb what I was feeling with alcohol. But being sober now, actually when I chose to get sober, I wrote this first song that I ever wrote, and it's about calling yourself back to yourself, because I felt like I hadn't been me in such a long time. And so I wanted to write a song honoring a practice that so many Indigenous people have, different ways of calling yourself back. Some of us say our names 4 times, some of us do ceremonies or do things that bring you back to yourself. So for those of you who need regrounding, just think about what makes you feel like you, what brings you back to yourself. And I'm going to share this last song to close out, and it's called Come Back to Me. For anyone who needs to call back yourself or pieces of yourself, if you get overwhelmed or you're angry and you're like, I've never used to be angry, you can call back that kindness, you can call back that compassion. And so I'm going to close out with this song called Come Back to Me. I'm trying to find my place in this world, but it's hard to heal, holding so much hurt. I feel the weight of each wound's cries, the tears that fall, try to hide my light. When you hear the darkness and it's coming for your heart, call sacred medicines you've carried from the start. Come back to me, come back to me, come back to eyes were blinded by unhealthiness. Anything to fill this emptiness. I've stumbled and I've fallen over misplaced dreams, wanting a taste of something just to feel anything. When you feel the pain of trauma eating you away, call on your ancestors to return your strength. Come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me. You get to find the pieces you thought you ever lost. Reach deep inside to call back your heart. Thank you all for sharing your hearts and spirits with me today. I hope you heard something you needed to hear or got some grounding or lesson you needed. And just thank you all for the work that you do for the communities and people that you work with.
Tanea, thank you so much. I think I can speak on everyone's behalf. I think we are closing with lightened hearts and feel so blessed with your art and your message. Thank you so much. I think that was probably the perfect closing. That was exactly what we wanted. Thank you so much. I now would like to invite John Escalante, who is an eligibility and case management specialist with Paskayaki Tribal Adult Social Services, to close us out in a good way with a prayer. John, are you online?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Yosen Chaniawu Kechamalea. My name is John Escalante, and I am a tribal member of the Paskayaki tribe, and I am honored this afternoon to do a closing prayer. And I am, with your permission and all your permission, I'd like to say a short prayer. God the Father, our Creator, I pray to you and give you thanks for allowing us to come together these past 3 days to listen to the presenters and the speakers as they brought forth their knowledge and for the sharing of their experience. We ask that you continue to guide us in the work we all do each day to assist the families within our communities who come to us for assistance in their time of need. Give us the strength, Lord, that we may treat them with dignity, respect, and most of all, love. Lastly, Lord, I ask that you bless every participant and their families, and that you protect us from all evil. I pray in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you so much, John. And thank you again, Tanea. That was absolutely perfect. I'd like to, on behalf of Region 9 and Region 10, thank you all for your participation, for your presence, for sharing your wisdom, and for joining us in creating community here. Virtual is not optimal, but I feel like at the very least, it does provide an opportunity to connect. And we're really hoping to connect with you all in person next year or in the very near future. Thank you again for your participation, and we hope that you've taken away not only the beauty that we just ended with, but also some wisdom and knowledge from your peers and subject matter experts that will help to improve services to families, that will help you to improve your resilience, and as you do the powerful work that you're all doing. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And if you could just stay on a minute more, we will have a survey here for you to take. And again, thank you so much.